different channels. I don't know which is the.
You can use your microphone and your equipment that is in front of you. We have interpretation in English, French, Italian, German, Albanian, Greek, Bulgarian, and Croatian.
Good, okay. So I'll speak in Greek then.
Good afternoon to everyone. I'd like to welcome you here to the European Parliament so that we can discuss together a very, very interesting and up-to-date issue. We are neighbours and we are very interested in what happens in our neighbourhood. Our neighbourhood needs development. There's no doubt about that. This is a very underdeveloped part of Western Europe. However, this must be a development which is sustainable and which responds to the needs of people as well as future generations. We want to leave our children a good ecological heritage, something that our grandchildren will be able to enjoy in their lives. So, any plan for development must reflect some rules which respect the environment and people. And they have to also respect the rules of democracy. They should not just emanate from the top. They have to be decisions that are taken with the participation of civil society who live in the area and who will undergo the repercussions, the effects of these changes. So quite apart from the democratic issue, we also have a suspicion that we have these pharaonic projects which don't actually have any real sense, but whose main aim is to service interest groups, rather shady interests, and that is not democratic and it is not transparent. Well, with those introductory words, I'd like to welcome you once again and introduce the documentary film, which is excellent. It's called Free Flow by Elton Bachacho. It's part of a cycle, or rather it's a network, says the speaker, of reporters and journalists from the Balkans. Well, after the film, we'll be discussing the issue with our guests and with the MEPs. Thank you very much.
Ni mošteri për këto problemin që kena. Po duna edhe me lalon pa ujë.
Po të vrinë në zhjeli këtë punë, të vrinë në aferi, ti jeve.
Tu do vritë me ti jeve. I madhe I vogël. Gjerësat në vrinë dhe japin për jijen, po.
Kemi qenë korrekt, e deri sot ne qim edhe pa punë, edhe s'kemi shtamë të pimë pa na morë ujë. Kemi 8 muaj që vazhdojnë këtë program. Ma shumë polici se popull. Na kanë mashtruar, na kanë ngrirë. Qeveria të japë rrugëzira kësaj pune. Ne si popull nuk e lejmë, ka lejmë tuk tjenë. Nuk e lejmë.
Po na rri policia po në kokën. Kryetari i komunës po na hypë lart, na nuk di ka të marrim.
Qeveria t'ja jap fund herë mirë këtij popullit.
Brigadat kanë zbritur njëra pas tjetrës nga fjerza. Po ti pyesësh se çfarë specialiteti kanë, ata do të përgjigjen duke qeshur. U ndrojmë vendin maleve e rrjedhën lumejve.
Në aspektin e ndërtimit dhe burimit të ri energjetik, po marrim vënë e hidrocentrateve, para 90-s kanë funksionuar procedura të ndryshme, bëheshin më shumë hidrocentrale të mëdhej, filloi të ndërtoi Valdez, Fierza, Komani, këthe nga zona e Banjës, pra kaskada e Devollit. Pra bëheshin hidrocentrale të kësaj madhësie për të përmbushur nevoja shumë vjeçare, jo të një periudhe të shkurtër.
Hidrocentrali i drita i partisë dhe premate e hidroenergjetikës sonë.
Marrin burimet energjetike kryesore, kjo është kaskada e Drinit, fillon nga Fierza me 500 MW, me 600 është Komani dhe 250 është Valdez. Pra kjo është baza e sistemit.
Problemet me energjin janë në periudhën post-komuniste. Hidrocentrale që ishin ndërtuar deri më atëherë nuk mund të plotësonin më kërkesat në rritje të konsumit të energjisë. Pas viteve 98-2000, Shqipëria nuk i plotësonte më nevojat për energji elektrike të vetë të brendshëm. Për hir të së vërtetës me qeverinë Nano 2, ka pasur edhe 8, edhe 9 orë pa energji elektrike.
Shqipëria rreth 45-50% pra gati gjysmën e energjisë së saj e prodhon nga burimet hidrike të vendit dhe për pjesën tjetër i duhet të importojë energji dhe për të rritur gjithnjë më tepër sasinë e energjisë që prodhohet në Shqipëri, filloi kjo nismë e qeverisë shqiptare për të ndërtuar sa më shumë hidrocentrale.
Kryeministri Berisha ka përsëritur prioritetin e qeverisë për ta shndruar vendin në superfuqi energjetike në rajon gjatë inspektimit të punimeve të hidrocentralit të Ashtës në Shkodër.
Në projekt e qeverisë shqiptare për të shndruar Shqipërinë në një superfuqi të vogël rajonale të energjisë së rinovueshme. Le të nisim ne këtë nisëm, komunitetet lokale, kudo që janë, të bashkohen, të ndërtojnë hidrocentrale të vogla, por të marrë energji falas, të shfrytëzojmë çdo potencial, në mënyrë që Shqipëria të shprohet të një nga eksportuesit kryesor të energjisë në rajon.
Pas ndërhyrjeve në hyje, pas ndërhyrjeve në bregdet, urbanizimi me vende pa vend, vjen fushata e fundit për ndërtimet me hece në një frym të asaj që është energji e pastër.
Tabloja është apokaliptike. Janë 525 hidrocentrale në vetëm 3000 kilometër rrjedh që ka Shqipëria.
Ndërtimi i këtyre hidrocentraleve parashikon një tharje të burimeve ujore të vendit.
Sistemet elektroenergjetik shqiptar i është shtuar një vepër tjetër energjetike, por ajo çfarë e bën më interesante këtë përurim është se kompleksi energjetik është vepër e kishës ortodokse autoqefale të Shqipërisë. Heci rapunit 3 dhe 4 është ndërtuar në përputhje me strategjinë e qeverisë shqiptare për sektorin energjetik dhe në përputhje të plot me zhvillimin rajonal, bëhet e ditur në njoftimin e kishës.
Nuk u artuaj një master plan që të përcaktoje sa ujë do marrë, ku do ndërtohen, ku do jetë burimi, ku do futet në rjet. Ishte në zonat të mbrojtura, si ishte në zonat të mbrojtura. Pra, të gjitha këto bëhen para se të firmoset kontrata koncesionare. Kur dhani hidrocentralë s'petu me njëri, as lidhje me sistemin, as ambientin, as fizibilitet, vetëm bëj tenderin, mersh të marrësh, jepsh të japësh.
Në të shkurën, batërdia e korrupsionit dhe e këtij modeli zhvillimi pas një qëndrueshmëri ka sjell një numër të drejtash apo lejesh të dhëna për hece, 113 janë drejt për drejt në zona të mbrojtura. Do të ndalohet një herë e mirë ndërtimi i heceve në zonat e mbrojtura.
Librazi është një ndër rrethet më të mëdha, më të veçantë rrugëll që i ka lënë 110 leje koncesionare. Vetëm në park kombëtar të Shëbenikut janë 47 leje koncesionare që janë në kundërshtim me konventat mjedisore, me ligjet e mjedisit. Polisi ka qenë shkëndija e parë e protestave kundër ndërtimit të hidrocentraleve. Në ditë për ditësh banorët vetëm kur pan fadromat, të cilat po futeshin brenda fshatit të tyre. Atëherë banorët u mobilizuan për të penguar këto fadroma.
Ne si popull herë për hidrocentralën kemi ditë gjatë fare. Fshatit nuk janë dakord. Asnjë nuk në rrugë. Për arsye se tu herë nuk ka ujë, ka ujë shumë pak.
Çfarë bëmë ne bllokuam që mos kalojnë tubat. Mos kalojnë. Ata herë policia 10 herë, jo një herë, po 10 herë. Kemi 24 orë. Policia, firma dhe popull. Në gra me burra, mirë.
Neve kundërshtuam ndërtimit për arsye sepse ne nuk ishim qartësuar si do veprohesh me ujët e centralis, sa do na linjesh neve për nevojat që kishim ne, sa do punonte si përmbarsi, firma ndërtuese, sa do e shfrytëzonte ai, pra ne ishim pa qartë. As kishim firmosur, as kishim deklaruar gjangte mes pranaj. E kundërshtonin një të tillë.
Sa letra bëhet Shqipëri, sa letra fotokopohet Shqipëri, sa punë bëjnë kompjuter Shqipëri, unë nuk duhet ditë fare.
Ta thëmë me shpirt. Jam aq një verkot, aq një zemë që do të thë prap. I rusat, policia bëj luftë, atë herë bëj luftë gratë. Po rastua po mori 3 gratë, mori nusën e djalit tem, mori edhe sus një peshën tem, edhe një po atë 3 gratë që i mori futi burkë. Ne nga 4 ditë burkë librar, në Elbasan. 4 ditë burkë. Edhe dhe numë.
Përfaqësues të 400 familjeve të komunës Polis të rrethit të Librazhdit kanë mbetur pa ujë si pasojë e ngritjes së 2 hidrocentraleve lokale. Ata kanë protestuar sot përpara komunës në shenjë proteste ndaj kreut të saj që ka dhënë lejen për këto vepra.
Neve që protestuam më shumë, fillimisht protestuam sepse nuk kishim besim tek drejtësia dhe mendojmë gjithmonë që ai që ka para më shumë, ai më i forti gjithmonë del fitimtar. Pastaj ne kundërshtuam vazhdimisht dhe kishim edhe mbështetje, duke na thënë që do shikojmë rregull dhe mund ta anullojmë dhe mund ta ndryshojmë me ndryshime që mund bëjmë, mund ta ashtu, por faktikisht unë nuk u ndryshua asgjë. Edhe centrali u ndërtua. Kaq.
Çfarë do bëjmë? Vaj, da rafin në Futiburg. Çfarë do bëjmë? Çfarë do bëjmë?
When I saw the Vjosa some 5-6 years ago, I knew this is a jewel. This is something that is worth fighting for. The unique thing about the Vjosa is free-flowing from the mountains to the sea. The most beautiful part of the Vjosa and the most important part of the Vjosa, from ecological point of view, are the wide riverbeds with the gravel islands, the bays, oxbow, the beaches, and so on. I'm Ulrich Eichelmann. I'm the head of an organization called River Watch, and I am coordinating the campaign to save the Balkan rivers. It's called Save the Blue Heart of Europe. We're doing this together with organizations from Germany, Euronatur, and local partners throughout the Balkan countries. In Albania, we're doing this with the help of Eco Albania.
Unë jam Besiana Guri, përfaqësoj qendrën Eco Albania. Qendra Eco Albania është një qendër mjedisore, e cila ka si fokus mbrojtjen e ekosistemeve natyrore, por kryesisht po punon më shumë për mbrojtjen e Vjosës, lumit fundit të egër natyror në Evropë. Kemi kaq kohë që kërkojmë, bëjmë fushat, bëjmë takime për shpalljen në parku kombëtar të Vjosës.
What happens in Albania, what is planned to happen in Albania with damming all the rivers or diverting the water from all these rivers is the same all over the Balkans.
Një grup shkencëtarësh nga Austria, Gjermania dhe Shqipëria kanë rënë dakord që do angazhohen për Vjosën, duke mos qenë pjesë e OJF-ve, duke mos qenë të ngatruar as me një lloj institucioni. Ata e filluan që në vitin 2014 u bën një studim i biodiversitetit të lumit, të u prek pothuajse gjithë lugina dhe kanë dalë në një raport paraprak i cili solli disa dhëna për Vjosën.
We discovered something like 100 species in the main river channel of aquatic invertebrates, of which 40% have never been encountered before in Albania, showing this enormous conservation value of the system. We also encountered species new to science. There is one species of fish even, Melascus bochemi, we will call it.
If you just look on the pictures from the Vjosa, you have river systems with high sediment load. So this means that if you build dams in this kind of systems, that they will be filled up with sediments in a certain period. Of course, depending on the dam height, this can be in 20 to 30 years.
We were invited by the Prime Minister, Edi Rama, for a meeting, and he promised to support our idea to establish a Vjosa National Park.
Qeveria është duke punuar për t'i dhënë formë një projekti të madh kombëtar që është transformimi i gjithë luginës Vjosës në një park kombëtar, që të frenohet barbarizimi i kësaj mrekullie natyrore përmes ndërtimit pa kuptim të hidrocentrale pas hidrocentralesh.
Ajo që ndodhi me Vjosën, filluan t'i prisnin degët. Fillimisht u pret dega e Çarshovës, janë ndërtuar 3 hidrocentrale kaskadë. Pastaj dega e Langaricës, që është në park kombëtar. Tani ka filluar ndërtimi në Bënç, në Shushicë, në Prill janë dhënë 4 hidrocentrale të reja për të ndërtuar. Në Drinos ka gjithashtu plane. Dhe qershia mbitor është ndërtimi i 8 digave të mëdha direkt në Vjosë. Komuniteti ka qenë shumë pak ose as pak, në pjesën ndërmuese as pak e informuar, askush nuk e dinte që tek aty ku ai mbillte Grurin, Mistrin etj do ndërtojnë një hidrocentral pas 22 vite. Shumë i irritoheshin, shumë të tjerë thoshin, i kemi dëgjuar këto plane edhe në kohë të komunizmit, nuk ka për të bërë asnjë gjë, etj.
When you build one single dam in the river, the choice is gone. You can only have this Wild River National Park without any dam.
Hidrocentrali Kalivachit është hidrocentrali i parë që është dhënë me koncesion që në vitin 97. Kompania investitore ka qenë një kompani italiane mbaj mendën në Kalivaç, e cila ka mbajt peng për 20 vite fiks në radhë.
Kalivaç was always a pain in the ass.
Edhe pas kërkesave të shumta tonat që të anullohet ajo lloj kontrate që ekzistonte pavarësisht se kishte kaluar gjitha afatet, paraqitesi e pamundur.
Finally, all the permissions were cancelled for Kalivaç this spring, and they sent out a new tender. We will legally fight and do everything we can to stop that dam. And if that dam is stopped, then the chances are high to have this national park.
Ministria e Energjisë zyrtarizoi marrëveshjen e koncesionit për ndërtimin e hidrocentralit të Poçemit në lumin e Vjosës. Lajmi bëhet publik në gazetën zyrtare të Agjencisë së Prokurimeve, sipas së cilës ministria i ka dhënë kompanisë turke Kovlu Energji të drejtën për ndërtimin e ecit me fuqi të instaluar 95 megawatt.
Në kohën kur Poçemi është miratuar ose ka filluar procedurat, ne nuk kemi pasur asnjë lloj informacioni. Aktiviteti i parë i fushatës ka qenë konferenca për shtyp që ne kemi bërë në fshatin Qesarat. Aty kemi dashur që të shprehim vizionin ton për një park kombëtar dhe gjithashtu që të nënvizojmë të kërcënimet që i kanosen këtij lumi.
E para i informuam qartësisht se çfarë ata mund të fitojnë dhe çfarë ata mund të humbasin nga ndërtimi ose jo një hidrocentrali. Bashkarisht ndërtuajmë një strategji se si mund të përballemi, çfarë mund të bëjmë me ta.
Orsi më shpjegoi që qeveria ka marrë një vendim që do të bëjë hidrocentralin në Poçem. Ne marrëm si të më si të lehtë që do bëj hidrocentralin, po si do bëj, ku do ta bëjmë? Në shteti thash neve asnjë gjë nuk na ka ardhur. S'ta ka petu fare. Pra asnjë lloj mendimi, pa asnjë lloj gjë fare. Në rast se shteti do ta bënte këtë, do të ditë mirë takime banorët e zonës. Dam një peticion komunës. Komuna e përcolli bashkisë, bashkia e përcolli shtetit, qeverisë lartë, përgjigje nuk e marrë. Duke mos marrë përgjigje, neve vendosëm si fshat, si komunitet të bashkuar gjithë, bllokuam rrugën. U lidhën banorët e fshatit me zinxhirën, çunë në dërim, të moshuar, u lidhën me zinxhirën në mes të piskut me vapës në asfalt.
Në vitin 2016, në prill, ne ndërmorëm një iniciativë, një aktivitet shumë të madh, i cili ishte aktivitet proteste, turi i lumenjve të Ballkanit, me aktivistë, me kajak, të cilët lundruan në pothuajse gjithë lumenjtë e Ballkanit me një mision të qartë për ndalimin e këtij që ne quajmë tsunami ndërtimit të hidrocentraleve në Ballkan. Dhe finalja ishte në Vjosë.
Kundër ndërtimit të hidrocentraleve është zhvilluar sot në Tiranë nga aktivistët në mbrojtje të lumeve, të cilët kanë ripërsëritur kërkesën e tyre për moratorium 3 vjeçar.
Përveç 2 vjeçarëve, kemi që kullosin 30.000 kokdele. Gjedh, rop, thën, vi. Ku do të shpjegoj këto more zoti kryeminist? Të pyetet.
Gjatë protestës nuk ka munguar dhe akuzat e ironitë e banorëve të zonës, kushtuar kryeministrit të vendit duke kërkuar atij të qëndrojë larg kutës së Poçemit, së bashku me firmën fituese që duhet të ndërtojë këtë hidrocentral.
Ne si Albania kemi pasur gjendje besimin dhe insistimin se ne nuk kemi çfarë humbasim, sepse ne kemi shpallur luftën e hapur për asnjë hidrocentral në Vjosë. Dhe menduam se jo të drejtohemi gjykatës për këtë pjesë. Të gjithë merrnin përsipër që të na jepnin konsulencë ligjore, por askush nuk e merrte përsipër që po unë do i përfaqësoj juve në gjykatë.
A lot of people said that doesn't make sense here in our country because the judges don't follow the law, they follow the interest of the government.
Fatmirësisht kemi pasur në mbështetjen tonë një studio shumë dhe mirë ligjore, e cila e mori përsipër për ta çuar çështjen në gjykat.
Pas studiuar materialin, konstatova që kishte shkelje të një sër aktesh ligjore. Dy ishin pikat kryesore, ishte ajo që quhet vlerësimi i ndikimit të mjedis, i cili ishte amatores, kishte një lloj plagiature brenda, përveç faktit që nuk ishte i saktë, dhe pika e dobët tjetër ishte ajo që konsiderohet nga ligji dëgjesa publike, pasi është i vetmi moment, sipas meje, në cilin publiku ndërhyn në aktivitetin e këtyre institucioneve shtetërore. Si thua që kontrollon ato. Ishte bërë një njoftim në faqen web të Agjencisë Kombëtare të Mjedisit, nuk ishte përdorur asnjë mjet tjetër, përveç kësaj pjesëmarrësit ishin kryesisht punonjës të firmës që do të realizonte ndërtimin ndërcentral. Kishte edhe shumë shkelje të tjera, të cilat ne i pasqyruam në padin që ngritëm duke kërkuar që të deklaroj në analizë të fundit pavrëmëria e kontratës së lidhur mes MEIT dhe zhvilluesit, pra kompanisë turke për ndërtimin e hidrogjendreit Poçemi.
You know, we were very positively surprised when all three judges in the administrative court in Tirana voted in our favor, so the Pochem is for the time being stopped. So they cannot start the construction.
Kjo të jep shpresë jo vetëm lëvizjes mjedisore në Shqipëri, kjo jep shpresë edhe mënyrës të funksionimit të demokracisë në Shqipëri.
Faktet tregojnë që pavarësisht përpjekjeve të mëdha, pavarësisht mediatizimit, angazhimit të shumë grupeve të ndryshme të njerëzve në nivel kombëtar apo ndërkombëtar, nuk kemi arritur sot për sot që ta mbrojmë Vjosën. Pra Vjosa është vazhdimisht e kërcënuar. Një grup artistësh u bën pjesë e nismës tonë dhe organizuan një koncert madhështor në Tiranë, i cili ishte i dedikuar Vjosës.
Mikpritjen e kam pas nga babai. Nuk kam kopju as pun, por vetëm thjesht traditën time. Te shtëpia ime këtu është një natë në fshat. Normal që në fshat të si ketë gjitha kushtet, por je një natë dhe të ta pranosh ashtu si që. Pavarësisht se i thonë treg saj punet, klienti këtu nuk ka drejtën e porosis. Turistin e konsideroj si një mik. Unë punoj vetëm me familjen time. Dhe kërkesat sot janë, po thuj se kërkesa sa unë nuk mune me i prit, sepse ka që është kapaciteti.
My name is Catherine, and I live in Valbona. I've lived here for 8 years now, and I first came on holiday, and within 24 hours, fell in love with the place. So I basically have spent the last 8 years trying to be useful. I think the minute that I got off the boat in Durrës, and it really felt like you were, I don't know, traveling back in time or traveling to a different world. And everything was very slow. They had so much time for each other, and everyone here was so kind. So in the first place, mostly I was helping the Selimai family with the tourism. Made their website, took reservations, welcomed people, gave information, what can you do, where's the transport, clean the rooms, wash the floors, chop the wood, make the signs, paint the walls. I mean, everything we had to do ourselves. Yeah, we were just sort of making it up as we went along, whereas now it's much more professional and serious. I'm never sure if people here understand how rare this is in Europe. I mean, this doesn't exist anymore. This is incredibly precious, and Albanians should be really proud of it and very protective of it. It is a place with an identity which is so unspoiled and has such high level of integrity. I mean, Valbona is Valbona, and nowhere else is.
Unë e Valbonën e kam pa vetëm 2 herë në jetën time, sepse mas parin komunizëm s'kem pas drejt me dalë në Valbonë dhe këtu është desh me dalë me vizë, sikur me kanë ka ikë sot për Amerikë. Ka qenë e pa mujtën e. Kam qenë bujk, kam punu në minjerë, po me shndrimin e sistemeve në demokraci, në dha mundësia me hik jashtë, edhe kem punuar në refugjat në Itali, në Gjermani, ku dhe unë njofta me gruan temi që kam 2 djemë me ta, edhe erdhëm për t'jetuar në Valbonë. Ishte një klimë e mirë biznesi.
Ich komme für meinen Mann nach Albanien und nach Valbona. Wir haben hier Urlaub gemacht. 2-3 Tage waren wir in Valbona. Und dann hat mein Mann halt geguckt, wer Land verkauft. Und dann hatten wir halt das Glück, dass wir das Land kaufen durften hier. Und dann haben wir gebaut vor 5 Jahren. Ich bin gelernte Hotelfachfrau. Ich habe 3 Jahre gelernt für Hotelmanagement. Und dann, ich habe 15 Jahre in Deutschland gearbeitet, in Hotels, in Restaurants. Arbeite ich überall, in Restaurant, in Küche, Rezeption.
Sepse Valbona është këtu një turizëm në të ardhura, është një fabrikë për rrethin e tropojës. Du ta mendojmë që tropoja nuk ka asnjë të ardhurën e tjetër. Çdo tropojan sot që jeton në Tropoj ka përfitimin nga turizmi.
Këtu mund të jenë 80% e banorëve këtu që jetojnë nga turizmi. Dikush te akomodimi, restorante, transporte me makina këtu mbrana për mbrana, me kuaj, guida lokale, produktet i shesin edhe ata që prodhojnë, bedhom që kanë lopa, dhëja, diçka i shesin, djathin.
Sikur mos ishte turizmi në realitet, këto ata që do të jetonin këtu ishte një mbijetesë, jo jetesë, sepse toka nuk është se ka favoret naja për pëllim dhe gjithsesi është e pakt.
Wir nehmen Kartoffeln, wir nehmen Käse, wir nehmen Joghurt, wir nehmen Milch. Die ganzen Bauern, die für 3 Monate kommen, mit ihrer Kühe, Schafe, Ziegen, die leben ja auch von hier. Die Fischer, die die Forelle angeln, verkaufen den Fisch bei uns. Das ist ein Kreislauf und der wird kaputt gemacht durch dieses Wasserkraftwerk.
I don't think the hydropower developers have even the first idea of what a terrible thing they're doing. I think they're just like, oh, progress. Well, the very first hydropower that started in, I think, 2013 was this Teplani project, which was very bizarre because just a bulldozer showed up one day and started plowing up the forest. I think that was when I started to say, but this is a national park. What does that mean? If you can build a hydropower in it, what does it mean it's a national park? And the only sign of it being national park was that the words national park were spray painted on some rocks.
Edhe turizmi dhe energjia nuk mendoj se mund të shkojnë paralel. Po të ndërtoni do centrale kështu pafund. Unë mendoj që nuk do ketë turizëm.
Ich glaube, das wird ein großes Problem werden, wenn die das weiter bauen, dass die Touristen nicht mehr hierher kommen werden, weil die Natur ist kaputt. Sie kommen hier, um sich zu erholen für die Natur und nicht kommen für ein Wasserkraftwerk. Das können Sie auch in Deutschland oder woanders sich angucken.
You take the entire river and you put it in a tube. So the river is gone. What happens when the river is gone? First of all, it's not beautiful anymore. The river is naturally cooling, so all the temperatures are going to go up. The water is gone, so the humidity goes down, and you've completely changed the environmental system.
Ne kemi kundërshtuar tunelet. Mos devijohet lumi të futet nëpër tunele, se janë mbi 3 kilometër tunele. Një lum hiqet fare i Çeremit. Këto janë vajtuese, tronditse, vajtuese janë. Kjo si lugin për mua vdes. Se heci ka rrugë aksesi për të ndërtuar, heci ka linja tubacionesh, heci ka diga, heci ka linja transmisioni. Nuk është vetëm ajo ku vendoset turbina, e kupton? Është një ollë shumë e madhe se saq. E kjo ka qenë rasti I Valbonës.
The local people were amazing. I mean, I have to say, everybody I think understood they were not going to get electricity. It was not going to create jobs. It was going to seriously impact the tourism, if not ruin it. That their homes would be changed. So, yeah, people came together and really worked really very hard.
Sot ne ndodhemi përballë një akti të shëmtuar të politikës tonë, që kërkon të rrëzojë krenarinë e Alpëve shqiptare. Vendimi për ndërtimin e heceve mbi lumin kërkon të flijojë këtë mrekulli të natyrës, për interesa tërësisht personale të disa njerëzve të traktuar, të cilët nuk humbin asnjë rast për të shfrytzuar çdo pasuri të këtij kombi për të ngushur xhepat e tyre.
In Albania, when there are objections to development projects or construction projects, the protests against them or the fight against them only begins after construction has started in 80% of the cases. And this is because nobody is doing public consultations.
Spontanisht e kem marrë vesh që do ndërtohen 2 hece këto. Shqetësimi I parë është mos konsultimi me komunitetin. Këto që s'kem pas informacion absolutisht. Lumi devijohet nëpërmes tubave dhe tuneleve, rreth 7 kilometra gjithsej.
Vim ndërtohen hidrocentral për afat lumi. Komuniteti I Valbonës është krejt kundër.
Jam komplet kundra atyre dokumentave që bahen në përzyra. Dhe populli nuk pyet fare. Jem ata që kemi zhvilluar këtë zonë.
Apeli jam o me na lën lumen ka e ko rrjedhën e vet, se s'kena nevojë për asnjë lloj seani.
Economically, these projects, they're not going to make money for local people. They're not going to create jobs. They do not make taxes. So out of this whole thing that affects the nature, people aren't even going to profit anything. So why should we? Why should we let them have our national park to put money in their own pockets?
Ligjësat me publikun nuk ishin realizuar në zonë, që është një detyrim ligjor. Leja mjedisore e disa kaskadave kishte skaduar. Në studimin aktuar të paraqituar nga kompania zhvilluese, nuk përmendet në asnjë rast që zona është një zonë e mbrojtur. Pra, ka bërë një plagjaturë të jashtëzakonshme dhe tregon se si situata dhe peizazhi I një zone të mbrojtur, një nga perlat e Shqipërisë, do zbukurohet në momentin që do ngrihen hidrocentralet. Mbi 14 lloje të piktiofaunës rrezikohen. Janë 4 specie në rrezik zhdukje të florës së Shqipërisë edhe mbi 6 të tilla të cilat janë pjesë e konventave të ndryshme që rrezikohen të zhduken nga ky ndërtim.
Në Parkun Kombëtar të Valbonës po zhvillohet sot maratona artistike Mos ma prek Valbonën. Prej muajsh banorë të Valbonës dhe shoqëria civile po kundërshtojnë ndërtimin e heceve në luginën e Valbonës për shkak të dëmtimit të natyrës dhe turizmit në këtë zonë të mbrojtur.
Hidrocentrale, vetëm 2, jo një ndër, vetëm 2, të cilat kanë marrë dritën e jeshile për shkak pamundësie të plot ligjore për të bërë anullimin. Kur dëgjoni hidrocentrale në Valbon lidhur me këto 2 projekte, mos parafytyroni diga. Nuk do të ndërtohen diga, sepse teknologjia e përdorur është krejt tjetër dhe peizazhi është tërësisht i pacënuar. Ajo që do të duket në fund të ndërtimit të këtyre vetëm 2 nga 15 janë 2 kulla tradicionale të asaj zone.
Gjykata administrative ka nisur shqyrtimin e kërkesës së banorëve të fshatit Dragobi për pezullimin e punimeve për ndërtimin e 2 hidrocentraleve në Valbon. Në Padi, 27 banorë të fshatrave përreth kërkojnë ndërprerjen e menjëhershme të punimeve për ndërtimin e hidrocentraleve.
Ekziston një klauzol në lejen mjedisore ku thuhet, në rastin se leja mjedisore ka kaluar 2 vite pa filluar punimet, në rastin se gjatë kohës që zhvillohet leja mjedisore janë gjetur faktorë të tjerë që ndikojnë në ekologji apo në biodiversitetin e zonës, atëherë ajo duhet të rishikohet. Ligjësat me publikun nuk ishin realizuar në zonë, që është një detyrim ligjor. Asnjë nga këto nuk u mor parasysh në rastin e Dragobis.
The legitimacy of the concession contract and the permits. This has nothing to do with the developer. They've tried to come to us, they've tried to say, why are you making this personal? We never did. Now, it's personal.
Ne dinim që ata do merrin supremaci dhe do të na shkelin, do përpiqeshin të na shkelin me kam. Kështu po bajnë. Aty është bani pirg me mbeturinë aty hidrocentralit, është bani një merd, po I themi, e madhe në mes fshatit. Po llogarit rrugë, trailerat, makineri të rënda që struken njerëzit në përcepa, të mos I shkelin me kam.
E që na bën të jemi kundra është që qytetarët nuk pyeten, investimet nuk shkojnë në linjë me strategjitë e zhvillimit. Pikërisht në këto kushte ne themi sikundër se ruhen burimet e faunës përmes moratoriumit të gjuetisë. Sikundër për moratoriumin e pyjeve mendohet që të risistemahen pyjet, atëherë duhet edhe një moratorium për hidrocentralet.
Vetëm me hidroenergjinë nuk është zhvillim I qëndrueshëm, është
me një këmbë. Po jemi shumë të vonuar në përdorimin e energjisë diellore, e cila zbut shumë presionin mbi hidroenergjinë.
Se dhe sikur ti ndërtosh 500 e ripërsëris 500-600 hidrocentrale, ti rindërtosh në periudhën e thatësirës ato hidrocentrale prap nuk do kenë ujë për të prodhuar. Ti do jesh i detyruar që të importosh energji.
So there are better options to produce electricity. Use the sun. In Albania you have a lot of sun.
Neve jemi një vend shumë i pasur. Ne mund të shfrytëzojmë energjinë diellore, mund të shfrytëzojmë energjinë e erës, dhe në fakt Ministria e Energjisë ka filluar që t'i bëjë këto element pjesë të strategjive dhe investimeve të saj të ardhshme.
Për ta thënë qartë, troç, padoreza, out of records, që unë jam zyrtar tani dhe duhet mbroj qeverinë, nuk e bëj këtë, po të them një gjë. Ligji i burimeve të rinovueshme në 2013 ishte fillonte me hec dhe mbaronte me hec. Nuk kishte alternativë tjetër. Të rrisim peshin e fotovoltaikëve, të energjisë së erës, të japim frymëmarrje këtij lloji biznesi në mënyrë që në një farë mënyre të rrëzojmë atë, si thuash, mithin e hidrocentraleve. Dhe Shqipëria në 2020 kanë marrë përsipër që të 38% e energjisë ta ketë të rinovueshme. Që vendosur 50 MW instalime fotovoltaike dhe 30 MW instalime ere, që do ishim shumë të lumtur të bësh.
Ka gjithë kjo histori të gjithë po humbasin. Ose ja po humbet. Ose tëja, po ashtu, nuk po përfiton asgjë, se do përfitonte pak në sigurinë e sistemit. Pra, po të shikosh në tërësinë e ndes, po i gjejmë kush ka fituar. Të më ndjeni, po, kanë përfituar ata që kanë për procedurat. Ka dhe nga ata që në mënyrë korruptive kanë fituar. Që ne të ishim një superfuqi energjetike sot pas tyre hidrocentraleve, jemi kthyer me kokë poshtë. Dhe vazhdojmë të qëndrojmë me kokë poshtë, aq sa gjaku pasaj të vijë aty ku të jap probleme shumë serioze.
Who pays the price? The biodiversity and the people, the society. It's a capitalizing nature and the society. You know, it's selling common good to very few people. They get rich and the vast majority pays the price. And that's unfair.
Komuniteti i humbur, shoqëria civile e humbur, gjithë shqiptarët të humbur dhe mbas 35 viteve edhe shteti i humbur.
Thank you very much for your attention. I propose to have a 5 minutes break so our panelists to take their position. We'll have Mr. Thomas Weitz from the Greens, the MEP who is very active on Balkan issues, and he is participating in the Bosnia and Herzegovina delegation and also Serbia and Montenegro. And also Cornelia Wieser from Riverwatch, Teresa Schiller for Euronatur, Igor Vajnovic from Bankwatch, and Besar Likimeta for Birn. In 5 minutes we can start. There is coffee and tea and water outside. Sorry that we don't have bottles, but plastic bottles have been are not permitted anymore in the European Parliament for ecological reasons. So.
Έλα. Είδες?
Δεν ξέρω. Μίλα λίγο.
Po presanire që të kthehet këtu rreth orës 5. Është ora 4:20? Po. Vjen rreth orës 5.
Hello. Coffee breaks by people from Southeastern Europe have a very bad reputation in Brussels. So it's better if we start. I hope you enjoy your break. The panelists are ready to start, and I give the floor to the Member of European Parliament, Mr. Stelios Kouloglou. Thank you.
Okay, again, we continue our journey to this power plants issue in the Balkans and Albania. Now we are co-chairing this panel with my colleague Thomas Waits from the Greens party, and you can chair if you like. And you also have a speech to
you go
speak.
First and I go after.
So no, I don't have to speak.
You don't speak.
No.
So, hello everybody. Again, we're talking about hydropower plants in the Balkans, in the so-called Western Balkans. The countries are not too happy about being called that way, but this term has kind of evolved here in the European Parliament. This is not the first time I'm speaking to about that issue. I travel a lot on Balkan countries. I'm also a member of several delegations, Kosovo, Bosnia, Serbia, and Montenegro, all the interesting countries, I would say. And as you know, there is thousands of projects on the Balkans on hydropower plants. And why am I so interested in this whole topic? I mean, first of all, I'm an environmentalist. And I started in Austria fighting against Austrian construction plans of actually taking the last free streaming rivers that we have in Austria to stop them with hydropower plants. You know that Austria has a lot of hydropower plants, and due to the fact that in Austria it's really hard to build new ones because the last free streaming rivers are in protected areas, these companies that are quite good in building hydropower plants now search for new business fields. And I found out during research that actually a lot of Austrian companies are directly involved into this destruction that is happening in our neighboring countries. So, and just not construction companies, but also banks giving loans like Raiffeisen and Erste Bank, I can name them straight away here because that's official, are directly involved. And also the Austrian government, and especially the Austrian Chamber of Commerce, is heavily involved into promoting these buildings of hydropower plants. What we see is major destruction of one of the last remaining free streaming paradises that we have in Europe. What we see is that for the revenue of some concrete companies, for the revenue of some Austrian electricity companies, there is a straight destruction of the future incomes of these regions. If you see how a region can develop, especially with such a natural heritage, developing a tourism based on nature, a tourism based on local communities, the overall income for these regions in a long-term perspective is much, much, much higher than the revenue you can ever have from a hydropower plant that actually kills the river. So how does it come actually that governments of Albania or North Macedonia or Kosovo or Serbia are ready to destroy their natural heritage? It is linked to corruption. And you know, you can ask the question, why are they not building solar power panels? Well, how do you corrupt on solar power panels? I mean, if I order 100 solar power panels, I can go there and look if there is 100 solar power panels. But who of you really knows how much concrete goes into a hydropower plant? And it's the concrete industry that lobbies, and does not only lobby by words, but also lobby by bills and checks. Yeah? And then selling actually much more concrete officially than they really use. And that's where the revenue comes from, and that's what politicians are paid for taking these wrong decisions. But not only that, it's also European banks and European investments that drive this development. It's European Investment Bank and European Development Bank that is giving the loans for these projects. And on that basis of these loans given, other banks and other financial institutions like the World Bank then jump into the project and add up and give the loans for these projects. And there we really have to ask ourselves the question, what is the European Union actually doing here? We're spending, and we're talking a lot about environmental protection, we're spending billions of euros on environmental protection, and then we give loans to destroy what we actually want to protect just because these countries are not members of the European Union yet. And this is what drives me here in the European Parliament, where I try to raise as much attention as possible. And that's why I really thank you for this initiative doing that, because we just had to talk before that event where I was asked, well, I mean, how can we stop these projects? We managed to stop some of them. And I say, you, me, all of you, the civil society, and we only can stop these projects if we manage to draw a lot of public attention on them. One example, North Macedonia, Mavrovo, Albanian spoken part of North Macedonia. Mavrovo is, for the moment, stopped. Because, why? Because we draw a lot of public attention on it. There was a huge outrage. There was questions to the banks and so on. World Bank drew back, and the project up to now is not going to be built. And the second recommendation, let's attack the companies in their homes. If it's EVN or Kelag, and this is Austrian companies, they are not sensitive on criticism somewhere in Belgrade or Pristina. But they are sensitive on criticism in Carinthia, in Lower Austria, where their homes are. That's where they're critical on the bad image of destroyers of environment. So this is the recommendation I can also give. Go to the countries of origin of the banks and of the companies, and let's shame and blame them there. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you very much. That's very good, and we have to keep in mind those two recommendations. So now from the river words, you're going to talk both of you, yes. But kind of from River Words, Cornelia Weiser, and from Euronature, Teresa Siller. Right?
All right. Could we have the presentation? Perfect. Good afternoon. My name is Cornelia Wieser from the NGO Riverwatch. It's a Vienna-based organization for the protection of rivers. And this is my colleague Teresa Schiller from Euronatur Foundation, based in Radolfzell. And Riverwatch and Euronatur are the two organizations leading the campaign Save the Blue Heart of Europe, for the protection of Balkan rivers, which you heard already lots about in the movie. So we've been working in the region for about 6 or 7 years, and time and again we are faced with the question about best practice in regards to hydropower. Even in the EU enlargement reports on Balkan countries, it is always criticized the uncontrolled expansion of hydropower in those countries. And the question cannot be how, because frankly, there is no such thing as an environmentally sound hydropower project. The question has to be where, or even more importantly, where not. And this is exactly what we wanted to present to you today. The Eco Master Plan for Balkan Rivers, which provides no-go zones for any future hydropower development in the region. So this is because the Balkan rivers are so valuable that we really have to consider very carefully what we want to destroy. So this is a spatial planning tool, and it's based on extensive scientific data. We assessed over 80,000 kilometers of rivers, so all the blue lines that you can see on the map, according to a set of criteria, and all those criteria combined provides the most comprehensive data set ever created for this region. The Eco Master Plan is based on hard science. Lots of international scientists were involved in the project. The master plan is in line with methods prescribed by the Water Framework Directive to assess the ecological status of rivers. We put 1.5 years of work into it, creating 90,000 rows in Excel sheets. So, why do we even need an eco-master plan? Well, first off, according to the WWF Living Planet report, freshwater habitats are declining at an alarming rate. Even more so, for example, than oceans, with freshwater species being the most threatened of all. In Europe, the Balkan rivers provide the last refuge for such freshwater species. And those species have become extremely rare or even extinct in the rest of Europe. And this is due to the outstanding value of Balkan rivers. As you can see, we assess the hydromorphology, so the conditions of rivers, and the blue and the green lines represent class 1 and 2, so the most outstanding, most intact classes, while orange and red represent classes 4 and 5, the most severely modified river stretches. And with this in mind, you can immediately spot the difference between, on the right side, Germany, which can basically be replaced with every other country in Western Europe, and on the left side, the Balkan region, where you can see so much blue and so much green. And this is also why we call it the blue heart of Europe, because the rivers are in such an amazing state. So this is the good side of the story. And now on to the bad side. Those rivers are extremely threatened. According to our 2017 data set, 2,800 dams are in the pipeline. So it's probably now about 3,000 already, because this is 2 years old, or 1.5 years old. 188 were under construction at the time, with on top of 1,000 existing dams. So basically every river, every little creek, every upper course of every river is threatened by a dam. So what's so bad about hydropower? Well, I could go on for hours about this, but probably it's best to just visualize it for you. So above me is the Black Trin in Albania in 2013, when it was still intact, still free-flowing. And this is just a few years later on the same day of the year, so it should have the same, approximately the same water level. You can see the dam, a small-scale power plant at the bottom of the photo, and below the dam, the river has fallen completely dry. There's no water left for the cattle along the river. There's no water for freshwater species. So this is an example for a small-scale hydropower plant. And 91% of all hydropower projects in the Balkans are small-scale. So this is what they do to rivers. So small can certainly not be considered beautiful. And another example is the Devol River in Albania, bigger river. You can see the beautiful ana-branching section here, still free-flowing in 2009. Those kind of gravel floodplains have become extremely rare. And this is why. Yes. So the same river section drowned in a dam reservoir, picture from 2017. This is an example for large-scale hydropower. Another reason why we need such a spatial plan is because rules are just not being followed when it comes to hydropower. 1,000 projects, so 40% of the projects are planned inside protection areas. And here are the numbers. 118 are planned inside national parks, the highest protection category there is. And 550 are planned in Natura 2000 categories. Now, remember, Natura 2000 is an EU protection category. So those projects only include those in Balkan EU countries, so Slovenia, Croatia, Greece, and Bulgaria. Another reason why we need the master plan is that the Balkan rivers are the hotspot for freshwater biodiversity. For example, they host 113 endangered fish species. If the dams are built as planned, 49 of those species would go extinct. This correlates to 10% of the entire, not just endangered, the entire freshwater fish fauna in Europe. We also think that a master plan could help avoid social conflicts because opposition in the Balkans is on the rise. For example, here, the women of Kruščica in Bosnia and Herzegovina who kept an access bridge to a construction site occupied for 500 days and nights in order to prevent the construction of a dam, which would have threatened the drinking water supply of an entire valley. And good news, actually, they just won by court order just before Christmas. Or here in Serbia, where just this January 5,000 people took to the streets to protest against the destruction of their rivers by hydropower. And opposition is also on the rise in Albania, in Kosovo, all over the place. And this poses a major threat to investor security, so this should not be ignored. Furthermore, we think that an eco-master plan could help reduce corruption, which is very closely linked to hydropower, as we already heard. And on this graph, you can see that 2 outlier years in terms of concession granting in Albania correlate with the years of federal elections. So you can fill in the dots yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Last but not least, the Eco Master Plan is designed to support international environmental objectives. It is in line with EU directives like the WFD, the Nature and the EIA directive, but also with international conventions like the Berne Convention or the Convention on Biological Diversity. And it even provides such no-go zones that are recommended in the regional strategy for sustainable hydropower in the Western Balkan by the European Commission. So as such, the master plan is an extremely valuable tool for decision makers in order to prevent environmental, social and legal conflicts in the future. And with this, I hand over to my colleague Teresa, who will go into more detail about the scientific criteria of the Eco Master Plan, the results, and energy alternatives.
Yeah, good evening also from my side. I'm glad to be here. My name is Teresa Schiller, working for Eure Natur Foundation. We are a German foundation and engaged in nature conservation all over Europe. And I'm coordinating the Save the Blue Heart of Europe campaign in Eure Natur. So, and with this, I would like to now start and to go a bit more into detail how we elaborated the Eco Master Plan and to provide you with more information on how we approached all this. So, as already mentioned, we selected a set of environmental criteria, such as, it's in fact 6 criteria: hydromorphology, protected areas, fish species, freshwater mussels, caddisfly species, as well as significant wetlands, such as floodplains, polyas, estuaries. I will lead now step by step through these different criteria. So to start with, we took the hydromorphology. And from all these different hydromorphology classes, the class 1, the near-natural pristine river stretches were defined as no-go stretches, as well as adjacent class 2 river stretches. You can see here once more, so this is the Blue Heart, which was already mentioned. It's a kind of hot spot also in Albania and Montenegro, but in general the whole Balkans. One step back, please, because what is really important to stress here is that 10 years ago, in 2008, we did the assessment of the hydromorphology of the Balkan rivers for the first time. And since then, so during the last 10 years only, 1,600 kilometers of class 1 river stretches of those blue, really pristine rivers have already been lost. So I just want to really to emphasize this here because it will just simply continue like this and even quicker if we won't change and interfere here much more. So the second criteria we used were protected areas. Here we used the really most top class categories of protected areas, such as national parks, and as well as also already mentioned, Natura 2000 sites. And it's really crucial to realize that most of the hydropower plants we identified, the planned ones, lie within Natura 2000 sites. And actually, we only considered Natura 2000 sites related to freshwater ecosystems. So not even all of them are included here. The third criterion we used were key fish species, in fact 33 key fish species. The one you just saw is the huchen, it's one of them. They have been selected by scientists and are actually very rare in the region already and especially sensitive to hydropower developments. The Turkish stretches of on the blue river stretches are these stretches where those fish species occur. And again, you can see quite a hot spot in the Albanian, Montenegrinian area in the south. One example would be the Moracha, which is strongly, again, under attack from hydropower developments. And from our criteria we used, it covers four non-go criteria, like the hydromorphology, key fish species occur there, protected areas, and it's a non-parted wetland. So canyons, as you saw there, or river stretches as such, are all endangered by these hydropower developments. Another criteria we used were the freshwater mussels. Freshwater mussels are very important as they belong to one of the most threatened animals group in the world. And for the Balkan region, we identified 3 key freshwater mussels as a no-go criteria, marked here with the yellow dots. You can see their distribution is strongly in the Danube basin in the north part, but also among the other areas. Again, they are rare and very sensitive to hydropower developments. Another criterion, it's the 5th one, are caddisflies. Caddisflies, and this is really special about the plan as well, the data we use, because they have been for the first time used for such a dimension. This species, it's, as you can see, it belongs, it's these flies. They belong to the so-called macrozoobentos, which is also a crucial criteria for the assessment of the ecological status according to Water Framework Directive. So it's important to be considered by the European Union as well. And so we managed to assess, or we selected 213 species occurring in the Balkan rivers, mainly in the headquarters of the rivers, as you can see here again. And last but not least, significant wetland systems were considered as no-go areas, such as the Sava floodplains that you can see here. And these, like floodplains, but also karst, polyus, and estuaries. What is also important to highlight here, these, especially the floodplains, they are not only important in terms of biodiversity, but as well for natural flood protection. So there are many, many reasons, and these were only 2 of them, to preserve them for future as well. Yeah, and here you see again the map where the stretches where these criteria applied. So, so applying all these 6 criteria together to the whole Balkan Rivers network, of this about 80,000 kilometers assessed, led to the result that more than 60,000 river kilometers are considered to be no-go areas for hydropower. This equals about 76% of the whole river stretches assessed. This number might appear huge to you, and it is. But this is actually proving on all our argumentation. It's the extraordinary value of the Balkan rivers which still exist and which are at stake now to be lost to hydropower. because this is the situation. Exactly. So what would we do now? So these are all the hydropower plants that we are facing on the Balkans, about 3,000 we've mentioned. If we apply all these no-go stretches to the Balkans, it would mean that about 90% of the planned hydropower projects would fall into no-go areas. And yes, this might sound, and it actually is a no-go for the entire area for hydropower, more or less. Okay. Yeah, exactly. So this is what actually the result of our eco-master plan. So, but as we are of course mainly applied for, or and this is a bit.
What is this? Sorry.
It's your echo.
Something.
It already echoes.
Something bad is
Look inside.
Please go on. Yeah.
Okay. So in the same time, we are of course well aware that there are energy and especially renewable energy targets to be reached also in the Balkan region. And that's why we also tried to get more information in this regard. So we commissioned a study which was actually dealing with the main question, so is it possible to replace the hydropower project plants on the Balkans by other renewable energy sources in order to still reach the energy targets of the region? So in this study, 7 countries of the region were assessed. And to keep this pretty short, but the findings of this study in conclusion were or are that most of the countries would fail to reach renewable energy targets even if all these dams would be built. This is depicted here in one example for Serbia. You can see, I tried to explain it. So you see the blue box on the down left. Unfortunately, I cannot point it, sorry for that. But so this is the blue one is the existing installed capacity of hydropower in Serbia. The green box above depicts the additional cost-competitive potential for hydropower in Serbia. And the orange dotted line on the upper part shows the electricity demand according to the National Renewable Energy Action Plan for 2020 for Serbia. So you can see that the hydropower, even if this remaining green, not yet built potential would be built, they would never reach the entire renewable energy targets. On the other 2 pillars is the solar and the wind potential. Again, the cost competitive potential shown in green. And here you can see that with alternative energies to hydropower, they could even easily cover it without building any hydropower there. So this is actually reflected here. Wind and solar could deliver enough opportunities to accomplish the country's NERAP targets. And wind and solar could substitute these no-go dams. And this is, I exemplified this here on the Serbian, for this case in Serbia, but this is more or less the same for the whole region. So this means in the end that we realized with the Eco-Master Plan and with this additional study that no new hydropower is needed at all in the region, but instead we need a total switch in energy policy. So just before I thank you for your attention, so what could this be like, or what could this look like? So it should be definitely in the first step, stop funding projects, hydropower projects in the region, which we would address to the European Investment Bank, but of course to several, to all other financing institutions actually. Something else would be also again, and this I would really like to, we want to call on the Parliament and the Commission, to really follow this accession process and to really look into the developments in the region and to focus also onto the environmental regulations, that they are really not only on the paper, because the legislation in the countries isn't that bad, actually, but that it's really the implementation also followed. And yeah, with these words, will close, and want to also to thank actually the Parliament to have given this opportunity for us here to present the plan. And we will be glad to, we have some more copies with us to share them with you and to further discuss later on. Thank you.
By the way, I would like one if you have. Okay, next. Sorry?
I cannot do it. It's with the technician. Could you go back?
No. What exactly? You would like to ask a question, sir?
Just to update the document, because I don't see the Kosovo country mentioned on the page. So if you can, especially if you want to reuse this file, which is extremely very interesting, and if you can put the name of the country.
It's just the pre-final.
I didn't get it.
This
is
the map.
If
the
you
map.
come back.
Back?
Yes, the map. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back,
Oh, okay,
back,
but
back.
we cannot do it right now.
But in the end, no.
I am asking.
Sorry about
No,
that.
maybe-
Later we will have the possibility to ask questions and make remarks, but not right now. Okay. Thank you. Because the flow of our river will be discontinued. All right. So from Bankwatch, Mr. Igor
Vejinovic. Thank you. So my name is Igor Vejinovic. I'm a hydropower coordinator for Sea Bankwatch Network. We are a network of 16 organizations for 14 countries of Central and Eastern Europe. What we are doing is following the money. We are mainly following public financing, so big public banks like European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, European Investment Bank, so European banks, but also we are following some of the commercial banks which are receiving money from them. I will be speaking briefly just, what is behind all this rush on our rivers in the Balkans is money. And it starts basically with the fact that a lot of these projects are small, most of them, and they are receiving subsidies from the national governments, or actually they're receiving subsidies of each and every person in these countries through the electricity bills. And this is driven by European policy in a way, because to kind of achieve our climate targets, we of course want to increase renewable energy. But somehow it happens in the Balkans that all this goes into hydropower. Why it's like that? This is a bit which we probably need to discuss here. So this is something which is really lucrative, because these are the contracts which are for 12 years, which are kind of, they have the price of electricity guaranteed and higher than the market price. So it's attracting a lot of investment in that way. But to build it, before you get this hefty subsidy, you need to buy pipes, to buy diggers, to, buy all this concrete. So usually the way that you're going to do it is that you take a loan from the bank. You see these nice logos there. These are the biggest culprits in this game. Some of them are public banks. On my left side, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the biggest in terms of number of projects. European Investment Bank, the biggest in terms of volume of financing. World Bank is kind of there because it's very well known, but they are pulling out of the sector in the Balkans. But Erste and UniCredit are actually very interesting. These are the banks. Erste is from Austria, UniCredit from Italy, and they're financing a lot of projects. They're either by themselves or they're actually using the money of those public banks. So, Bankwatch went into this whole story by actually addressing big hydropower dams. Some of them were already mentioned here. Mavrovo National Park, there was a big dam planned there, Boškov Most, which was supposed to be financed by European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. After 5 years of relentless campaigning by international and local groups, we kind of killed that project. So it's possible. But then we kind of were starting to be aware, because in this Mavrovo, apart from this bigger dam, you have, I don't know, 17 of them more planned. And North Macedonian government is not actually, still they want to build these 17 ones. Even like European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, after having this experience, now they are kind of advising them not to do that, but they are still very, very, very determined. Because we saw this big rush, 3,000 dams, we wanted to actually do research who is kind of behind it. So we did this research, which maybe we can share the link to it later, but the main point is that 700 million euros was invested from the public banks, like EBRD, EIB, World Bank. But there's also this part, 158 projects which are financed by the commercial banks. Next. There are some of the key issues which, from the financing angle of the whole story, we heard already about biodiversity-rich areas. This is somehow always coming up. Whatever kind of sample you look, if you look into the financing, there will be 1/3 of them are in the protected areas. This is because they are simply in these mountainous regions, which are usually also biodiversity-rich. But there's also this element that a lot of this financing is not known. I mean, this report which we made was done by research and kind of digging up database and stuff. This is not publicly available usually. And the particular problem is those investments which are going from the public banks through the commercial banks, and then commercial banks are dispersing further. So it's public money, it's money of all of us in a way, because the shareholders of public banks are countries, and then it just disappears. We know like how many projects are, like, I don't know, for a European Investment Bank is 22, for instance, but we don't know which projects they are financing. So this is like also a hole in accountability. If somebody from the community which is affected by such project wants to take this to the complaint mechanism of the bank, they cannot do it because they don't know which project it is. Next. Yeah. We heard a lot about impacts on environment or potential impacts on environment. I want to maybe just shortly say something about impacts on people. This report here is basically, I was going with a team of people around the Balkans and specifically monitoring plants which are financed by European public money. And it's kind of, they're all the same. I went to 50 places and they're all dry river beds, blocked fish passes, deforestation, and usually there was no public consultation before they were built. But we saw this example on in the movie. I don't know if you remember that one because it was at the beginning of the movie. The dam the investor was the Albanian Orthodox Church, right? I haven't seen such a. I mean, okay, maybe because everybody's river is the most important, but this is one of the worst cases I've ever seen. So there's a dam which is stopping water completely for 5 kilometers. So there's like 5 kilometers of river. There are villages around. Some of those villages where you see in the videos where people are kind of trying to do something about it and then they end up in jail. So this whole story ended up with the 5 kilometers of completely dry river bed. And this is not European investment. It's an investment by the National Bank of Greece. But in the, connected to it, there are two projects which are actually European Bank for Reconstruction and Development financed. Now they're out of the project after a few years, but they were investing into construction of those. So it's like everything is kind of mixed, and this kind of responsibility is very hard to tackle, because they're all somehow involved and working on it together. We saw also some of the footage from these plants there, because I was there, so I was recognizing that it was these terrible intakes which are built like, I don't know, like, I'm not sure what is this kind of construction practice. So these things are drying up rivers, and people are using that for irrigation usually, and then they are left without this water for irrigation. I mean, it doesn't even matter. They had the river for the whole of their life, and they're just then somebody comes there and takes it from them, because this is the issue also of the ownership of these plants. They are, I don't know any example in the Balkans they are owned by the local community. They're always owned by somebody external, either the international company or the national, somebody from the country, but not from the village. So I think this is something that also needs to be emphasized, that this is exactly opposite to the public interest in a way. Next. So you saw some people being pissed off about it, these 5,000 people in Belgrade, but when we kind of, as international groups, try to tell this story also to the people outside, they were actually also understanding that this is something which is really problematic. So together with Blue Heart of Europe and Patagonia, we organized this petition to kind of dissuade the banks from financing these projects. And 120,000 people signed this petition. This was delivered to the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. And I hope that they will try to change their policies in a way so they don't go into this Rapuni case anymore. This is my hope, but let's see how it will go. Next, yeah. This is something which I want to basically, it's a point of discussion, I think. There is a clear EU's role in all this. European Investment Bank is an EU institution. It's also, shareholders are EU countries, but it's basically really an EU institution which should follow EU legislation, even if they are investing outside of the EU. For the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, EU is one of the shareholders, and biggest shareholders apart from the US are EU countries. So it's basically these banks are owned by us, but they are somehow doing something which is against the interest of people. There's another kind of another type of EU's role, and that's their so-called energy community, which is basically a sort of like it's a treaty between the EU countries and the countries of the Western Balkans, which is implementing part of the EU legislation kind of a bit upfront from the process of the EU accession. So some of the EU legislation is already being implemented in these countries, but it's lagging behind. And this is particularly important if you want to discuss a bit of subsidies, because the rules which are currently in EU about subsidies are already would be basically killing these projects, because they are now in Europe, they are awarded on the competitive basis, while these guys in the Balkans, they get it just first come, first serve. They just have these contracts which are coming, which are for 12 years and which are enabling them to refinance the project in 5 years. So energy community and EU have this kind of role to push countries to also adopt the new rules for subsidies, which would be basically more competitive and which would weed out a lot of bad projects, because these are attracting really shady investors. I won't tell much about regional strategy for sustainable hydropower in the Western Balkans. This is the DG NEAR initiative, and I see DG NEAR people in the audience, so I guess they will tell something about it. But European Union was doing something about it. How well it was done, that's maybe a different question. But I think also European Parliament has a role. At the end of the last year, when there was adoption of there was basically resolution on the European Commission reports on the Western Balkan countries. In each report there was a sentence on hydropower. I think this is really important, kind of warning countries they need to do something about it. And in the two reports on Montenegro, Montenegro was, I forgot, like the two countries, they're explicitly calling also the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, European Investment Bank and Albania. Yeah, Albania and Montenegro. So I'll finish here. It was just maybe a bit of opening for discussion. If something is also not clear, I'm ready to explain details. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm not surprised by the fact that this distraction has been sponsored by the Greek National Bank, and I'm not surprised either that that was sponsored by God, you know, or by the representatives of God in Greece, actually, of church in Greece and in Albania. All right, now we have the Besar Likmeta, who is from the Balkan Investigator Reporting Network. Please.
Well, hello everybody. I'm very excited to be here because I see a lot of people from actually the regions which are actually impacted by these power plants, and now I realize that we did really good when we chose to narrate this story and partner with Elton Bajaku to do this documentary. Going back to whatever was said by the colleagues in this wonderful panel, I would just mention a few anecdotes because some of the most important problems were highlighted. The impact of the environment, the corruption that involves this power plant project, also the struggle of local communities to have their voice heard. These were the things that motivated us to tell this story. And when we, as reporters, over a period over a decade, we reported on many stories that involve power plants or hydropower plants in Albania. And there were little pieces of a big puzzle that started shaping together. We realized that this resistance put up by local communities wasn't just sporadic, but was a national movement. It involves social consciousness, and it involves something that, like you heard a lot of times from Brussels, but also in Tirana, that Albania civil society doesn't exist. Actually, I think this is proof enough that civil society does exist. It doesn't take the form that always people think. It may be a group of NGOs. It could be a group of NGOs, local and international. It could be a wonderful grassroots movement like there was in Valbona. But it could be even in the most, let's say, elemental form of this poor community in Librazh who did everything they could, even with their own bodies, even going to prison, to resist a developer by taking out their water, the water that supplied their fields, the water that sustained their lives. So the struggle of local communities can be for many things. So if in Librazh the case was simple, people were just wanted to sustain their, their crops. Let's say in the Vjosa Valley, there is a lot of biodiversity. So you have not only like organizations like El Natura, Riverwatch, but you see also a lot of scientists which are interested, because I think the biodiversity of the Vjosa hasn't been studied yet. In Valbona, we have one of the most wonderful, let's say, examples, not only in Albania, but I think in many other countries, of sustainable development, of sustainable and accurate tourism, which was built without the help of the government, without the help of, let's say, international development. It was built by the people who lived there, who did a wonderful job to not only to protect their environment, as they're still struggling to do now, with difficulty, I'd say, but also with their hospitality to create, let's say, a small industry, which is exceptional for Albania, and I know that how much the country struggles with this image problem. A few years, like 6-7 years ago, I remember reporting on this story about a plant in southern Albania, Langarica. And this Austrian company, with the funding of the World Bank, was constructing this power plant and taking completely the water out of this canyon, which is a natural monument, the highest degree of protection under Albanian law. And I remember going into a meeting after we did our research and found it, tried to talk to the World Bank, you know, stuff that normal journalists do, take a look at thousands of documents, you know, talk to sources, talk to people. So we went to this final meeting with this ENSO company, this Austrian company, and they line up a bunch of lawyers in front of us, and then we start asking questions, they start responding, we start asking other questions, they start responding. At some point in time, we start telling that your questions are not appropriate. At the end, they start getting angry. At the end, the CEO of the company gets so annoyed about this, like, bugging journalists. We're asking questions about the river, and he said that, like, look, we're not destroying the river. We're saving nature from itself. And I was like, how? Well, you know, said, you know, in this canyon, the river does, you know, flows a lot of, you know, things during the winter. So we're just taking some of the water out of it. So it just relieves the pressure. So it's saving. So somebody thinks that they're playing God with our nature and, like, saving nature from themselves. So it stuck with me. It stuck with me, and even in other projects, not only run by the Orthodox Church, but that somebody is thinking of playing God and remodeling nature completely. One of the things about these projects is that in Albania we completely lack a master plan and why we're building where we're building. To be honest, most of the measurements about, you know, the water flow of the rivers go back to the time of the communist era. Even these companies that are going into these investments are going blind because they don't have the right information. It's just greed, and it's greed financed by us, unfortunately, because the electricity price we buy from them is subsidized. So they say that, like, oh, let's run and get this river first or this little lane first before somebody else snatches it from me. So this is the greed of competing with each other of different interests. And they're running and corrupting the public officials, and the public officials then awarding these licenses. Then even at the times when they build, they don't build proper. They don't have, you know, the proper environmental impact studies, which, as we know in Valbona, but also in many other cases, they are copy-pasted. So you may hear sometimes that how good for the river is this power plant, and it's copy-pasted. Or you may find a mountain which is somewhere else, copy-paste it into, you know, a river, for example, from southern Albania to northern Albania. And then in the end, when these projects are finished, they're tied to the grid just at the wrong place, because you may have energy consumption in Tirana, and then you have a power plant in Valbona. But that electricity, once it travels from Valbona to Tirana, it's lost in the way. But you're paying the price like you're taking it in Valbona. So basically, the level of corruption that we're subsidizing is incredible. And that's why the banks are in, that's why the politicians are in, and that's why the companies are in. I mean, if you think about the resistance that people are putting, I would be that no government in the region would sustain it. I mean, this is so unpopular. It goes against the grain of every Albanian you speak to. I mean, you're taking water from people in their own villages and selling it to everybody. You're destroying nature. I mean, you're doing corrupt, and I don't want to list the number of corrupt affairs listed to, you know, connected to hydropower plants, because everybody knows them. So if you're doing all of this stuff, why are you doing it? It's a quick question. I mean, everybody's, because the money that is tied to them is a lot. And the money is tied because we are paying for it. It's unfortunate, but when you get your electricity bill, part from it is hefty because you're paying for this kind of projects. But I don't think that this is, should be a source for pessimism. I think should be, once you recognize what we are up against, and these are powerful forces, also we should recognize the strength that we have created, I think, within our communities. And the level of resistance, I think the different groups that have joined together, I think has been like almost inspiring. I mean, when I grew up as a kid, I would never imagine that like environmentalists would join up with artists, and artists with, you know, most diverse people around, and they would be smart. They would have like different ways and methods of protesting or opposing. And some of the cases, yes, there were won. Some of the cases were lost. But I think this is a struggle, and this is a struggle not only for the environment, but it's also a struggle for democracy, and I really hope that this will go on. Thank you.
You want to leave, or you want to say something? Some more time. You have some more time. So we'll continue up to 5 o'clock with some short interventions by our guests and friends here. There are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have something like 20 minutes. So 4 minutes each, please. So we're starting from Mrs. Irma Popovic Dugmovic. Please.
Thank you very much, organizers, for this really important event, organizing of this important event. I'm sure, I'm Irma Popovic from WWF. I'm sure you have heard that hydropower is a green source of energy, and it's like a propaganda all around us. And after seeing all this, I can imagine, green source of energy, it means that it brings benefits to the people, to the sustainable development, that it's good for the nature. But when seeing all this and hearing you, what do you think? Is it a green source of energy or not? This is my main question that I'm asking myself all the time, like how and where is hydropower green? We are happy here that we are organizing this and that we had the opportunity to invite people from the region here. So we have representatives here of brave women from Kruščica. They have been brave enough to come here as well and travel first time with the plane. The situation there is really serious. They really want to stay in their country and they want to stay in their region because people are living in Kruščica, because it's not just a river, it's the mountain, the same name of the mountain. So they are living this area. They are a poor community. They don't have too much to offer, and they just want some peace to live like they want to live. If you agree, I would give a word to Maida Bilal. She is representing the community, so please, Maida, the floor is yours.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
Prije svega želim se zahvaliti na pozivu prijatelja da se nađemo danas zajedno s vama ovdje u Europskom parlamentu. Ja sam Maida Bilal i dolazim iz Bosne i Hercegovine.
Thank you very much. I'm from Kruščica in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I would very much like to thank you for the presentations that we've had this afternoon and for making everybody aware of the fight that we're having in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It really is a global issue. It's something which is absolutely fundamental for us. We want to be able to stay where we are. We want to be able to work sustainably and to give a sustainable example for our fellow citizens. We don't want the investors to be able to just sweep in and do whatever they want and mean that the 150 people who live in the valley can no longer live there. It would be a great loss for our region. Our region has had tourists since the 70s and 80s. There are hotels in place. There are forests and beautiful landscape. It's really very diverse. Now, however, all of that is under threat. There are projects and investors that want to build a hydroelectric power plant in Kruščica. and some of them want to build hydroelectric dams which contain just the minimum amount of water that you can have in order to get the concession to build. For us, this is going to set a very poor example, and it's going to leave almost nothing behind for the community. We very much hope that those of us that are standing up for our natural resources are going to be able to continue to live in our area, and to hope that we have a future in our area, and that this can be a good example for citizens throughout the world. Thank you.
I would just like to add that hydropower is definitely not green, and that there should be no privileges for the hydropower. First of the privilege is subsidizing it. So I think the Commission and the Parliament is here a crucial actor to stop this, and because this is the main driving force, as Igor says, that we will stop most of this project just by killing the subsidies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Mrs. Natasha Kovacevic from Green Home of Montenegro.
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Natasha Kovacevic, coming from Green Home Montenegro. Actually, I'm presenting here my organization, but not just this. There is numerous people who are actually standing behind, and several towns where actually we have protests now happening. For example, there is a Plav, Berane, Andrijevica, Šamnik, Žabljak, Nikšić. So these are all areas where we have a big protests, let's say all protests of the whole community is happening in the field. So you will hear many times that Montenegro is kind of advanced when it comes to the EU transposition and implementation. But coming to implementation, that's actually a very weak point. So now what we have in a very small country of 13,000 square kilometers and 635,000 of people, there is 88 contracts together with on 45 or even more rivers where the dams should be developed. These days there are 13 that are working, and of course citizens are paying subsidies for this. Not to mention that from the 1st March we will have also wind farms which will come into the system. It's like 150 megawatts, and then also solar panels, which are now they're saying in the government that this will be like the biggest solar plant. But paying subsidies for something which is destroying not just the river in terms of in environmental terms, but also lives of these people, is something that really we cannot allow, and that's the great hypocrisy that we are actually seeing that's happening in Montenegro. So all of these plans, they were like 80% of them, they are planned till and permits are issued till 2016, which means that at that time we didn't have any kind. We had a strategy for small hydro, but they were not identification or mentioning any kind of water flows or assessment done. There were no strategic impact assessments on this. We even didn't have, as a state, water cadastre as a public. Although some of them were financed by the EBRD, but they were never public, and they didn't have any environmental data. So basically, when they were issuing this, and I think that this was the case in other countries, they didn't have any information what they have there. Do they have any agriculture, and do they have any tourism? Are those people really depending on those rivers? And that's what's happening, because those rivers, mostly of them, they're actually the northern part of Montenegro, mountain part, and by the preliminary assessments, their status is like 76% of the good ecological status by the Water Framework Directive. Coming to the protected areas, let's say just in Plav we have in a national park 5 of them which are at the border, or operations upstreams are in a national park, and as from the 1st April we will have, with the local community, we will have a protest that now we are organizing. Not to mention also that now we are working on a petition for moratoria on all hydropower in the country, and I think for some small number of days now we have 3 3,000 of signatures. We need 6,000, and I think that we will have it by the end of the month. And this is for the Assembly. So of course, we are collaborating, as with the local communities, we are collaborating with the government, and there are some trends in the country. One of these is that they are doing revision of the contracts for the small hydro. We asked several times to be a kind of partner or just a public that will be involved in this process. I just realized that this is happening also in Albania, and this is a kind of same pattern. I believe that just this resolution of the European Parliament, but also energy community, which was inviting I think it was communication from the November 2018, and saying that local communities must be involved in all of this process, and actually they also invited for the cases to be claimed. This is something also that we will do for sure. We need just a bit of legal advice. But this revision, coming back to this, is about revisioning contracts on administrational point of view. So if some of the dams had not been built for the last 10 years and contracts are still like valid, then some of them they will cut, and some of them they will issue new contracts. I don't believe that this is the process that the resolution and the European Parliament was speaking about, or your energy community. So basically, it's nothing related to the environmental impact assessment and meaningful public participation, which should be part of this. So there is a thing where I think that you can help, we all can help, and then there is another where I believe that we should start claiming for some of the cases to the energy community. Thanks.
Thanks for your intervention. I would like to react on that and just report what out of the parliamentarian accession meetings. I don't read the amendments that we actually had. You can imagine they went much further than what we actually pushed through. And what I read now is the compromise between your parliamentarians from Montenegro and us, parliamentarians here from the European Parliament. And this reads, and I can serve you with this from my office. This reads, notes that the development of additional hydropower and tourism capacities, particularly those in protected areas, must meet EU environmental standards. DG NEAR, listen. Express concerns at unsustainable hydropower developments, as many of the 80 hydropower plants projects are not being planned in line with international conventions or EU legislation. And the second one, we urge the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Investment Bank to review its support for hydropower plant projects and to withdraw funding for all projects which are undertaken in protected areas or lack sound environmental impact assessments. And the last one expresses concerns at the special purpose partial plan for the Skadar Lake National Park, stresses the need to abandon the large-scale hydropower projects on the Moravska River. So this is the compromise, so please take the text and quote your parliamentarians to do what they promise here, because we want to start negotiations on Article 27, environment, and I try to make it clear in every single meeting that, friends, if you want to become part of the European Union, don't destroy everything before that, but meet the standards right now, otherwise we're not going to get forward.
Very good. So now, Hannes Podits.
Hello, everybody, and many thanks for this opportunity to present all our problems here. We made our organization in 2009, and the reason why we made just another environmental organization in Bosnia, and we had already too many, was that Bosnia has only 2% of its territory under some sort of protection. Effectively, it's even less. 1% is only protected. Unlike Albania, we have no protected areas. We don't have even that legal mean to fight for protection of our rivers. What's the problem? Our politicians, we had a war, And the first wave of corruption was to take our factories and to sell them. Now they are selling everything else. Forests, river, land, whatever comes at their hands, they are trying to sell it. And unfortunately, the EU is not really helping us a lot. Since we have a large presence, and partly the country was managed by the international community, according to the peace agreement, Bosnia was supposed to have lots of corporations on the state level. It's a very complicated country, but we are supposed to have corporations for railways, for post, for energy, for communications, and many others. Eventually, we got only the one for communications because it was necessary after the war to silence hate speech on media, and we got power transmission corporations so that energy can be transmitted over Bosnia and from Bosnia, and nothing else. And then we got the energy community in 2005, and the idea was really noble to transpose part of the EU legislation that deals with energy, and that was an excuse for our builders of small hydro that that's something that the EU needs. It's green, we are saving the planet, and at the same time they are destroying rivers at a really fast pace. Unfortunately, we never got a transposition of the EU environmental laws. And that's the biggest problem. They just exist on the paper. We have loads of ministries, inspections, but they are not doing anything, and the state of our environment is even worse than 15 years ago, when we got these environmental laws. And the same situation is in the region. All countries in the regions are having lots of problems, not only with hydro, with air pollution. Bosnia, according to WHO reports, had the second highest mortality rate in the world because of the problems with air pollution. And it's a very difficult situation also in Serbia and Macedonia. And we have really lots of problems with the environment. And that was not enough for the EU to include the environment into the Western Balkans strategy that was announced a year ago. We got the strategy that was announced, okay, this is the credible and excellent way for a region to become part of the EU. Without fixing problems in the environment, we are not going ever to become members. Bosnia, it's my opinion, is not going to become part of the EU for the next 50 years because it's doing nothing in the area of environment. We have lots of problems with the landfills, with air pollution. What we need is we need an environmental community for Western Balkans. We need a environmental strategy that is strongly imposed by the EU to our governments. Unless there is something similar in place, it's going to be worse and worse and worse. Thanks a lot.
Catherine Bonne, now from the protection of the Albanian Alps.
Does it work? Okay. I can't talk with my back to half the people I'm speaking to. Okay, so it's really hard to readjust because with so much that's been said, what do I have to add? For one thing, I have to take a minute to say the documentaries that we have seen and are going to see today are wonderful, but there was one that, due to organizational problems, was not able to be included. And I have to thank, because the documentary, The Murder of Valbona, which was made by Top Channel, who have come today to cover this conference for the Albanian public, was a game changer in Albania. And it aired on September 19th last year. And after that, the government suddenly started accusing, before that the government, oh, it's progress, it's hydropower, it's energy, it's good. You know, and the day after they started bashing each other. Look what you did to Valbona. No, you did it. No, you did it. And this is really thanks to the work of these journalists. So you guys, thank you. I don't have my glasses on. I can't see you, but thank you. Please, you can find it on YouTube. It's been translated into English, The Murder of Valbona. Please watch it. It'll really piss you off. Okay, so I am here as part of a panel called Voices of Local Communities, yeah? So I cannot tell you how nervous it makes me to be asked to speak on behalf of people, but happily many of them are here today and have come from Valbona. So I had to ask myself, like, what if I am speaking for my fellow community members? What do we have to say to the EU? What do we want to hear? And what can the EU? How can the EU help us? So one thing that I think maybe people don't realize is in Albania particularly, where we live, we have a system of customary law called the Kanun. It's written down, it's codified, it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. And a large part of this customary law has to deal with the management of shared communal resources. And under this, which is it's not just that it's a codified law, it's a cultural truth. This is the reality of how people there live. And under this, everyone agreed together how to use the water. You get the water on Wednesday, you get the water on Thursday. If you wanted to change that pattern, you could not change it without 100% agreement of your fellow community members. The extent to which this is still true in the local culture, we have Liradan here, who has been working in Tropoja. He goes into 17 communities regularly, and he says to them, what do you need? What do you want? What are you trying to do? What are your dreams? What are you afraid of? What do you want? And he was very careful to ask this in terms of personal wants and community wants. And it is an absolute fact that 95% of 80 people asked, I think, the first time he went around, 90% asked only in terms of community. They had nothing to ask for personally. These are people who think communally, and they think together, and they think equally. Equally well, the American Bar Association just sent a fact-finding mission in to find out about human rights abuses, of what's being done to activists, to people who stand up to try to protect their home, what is being done to them. And they were amazed to find that when they asked people in Tropoja, are you a community leader? Every single person said, oh, no. And this is because this is not a hierarchical community. This is a community where everybody is equal and everybody makes decisions together. In communities which survive, and they survived this way in very, very harshest environments, they're called the accursed mountains for a reason. It's not easy to live there, and you don't live there unless you help each other. Imagine then what it's like one day when a bulldozer shows up in this village, and you say, what are you doing? And they say, oh yeah, the government gave your river to some guy. And you say, nobody asked us. And they say, well, yeah, but it's too late now, you can't do anything. So, EU, I really want you to hear the incredible bravery it takes for people to stand up and fight back against this, and the incredible injustice it represents. I also want you to hear, though, that these people are your future best EU citizens. They already believe in public consultation. They already believe in the right to information. They already believe in the sustainable management of shared resources. They already believe that no one person should take these things. These are great future EU citizens. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure you heard. Is that okay, guys? Okay. Another one, but what is happening right now? There's a gap. So you have this traditional customary system, which worked very well and managed resources. And then we have this future dream of the EU, which we all hope for. But what is the mess that's happening in the middle? And I mean, maybe you heard enough about it today, but I mean, just a few things. I will post all of this on our website when we get back, so if you want. But we did just have the ABA Justice Defenders League sent Fact Finder. Unfortunately, the final report wasn't finished today. They're still fact checking it, but I mean, an extract from it says, each of these reported incidents of harassment and pressure are serious on their own, but cumulatively they represent a society that is under constant pressure for wanting to be informed about their environments. A right guaranteed by the Albanian constitution. They are also punished for speaking out against hydropowers, which is only expected given the impact that the construction has had on people's livelihoods. So, I mean, we're not making this up, but I think after what's been said today, maybe I don't need to convince anything. I mean, I have afterwards or during break, this is an analysis of one of these EIAs that people are talking about. We're not making it up. This was done by an international firm based in Hong Kong. Everything red is the worst possible quality in an EIA. So this is saying the document is worthless. It's worthless. What else did I want to tell you? No information. When we try to participate, we're harassed, which has been documented. The people, somebody mentioned, I think, that in a weird way that this has led to a kind of a renaissance, though, because the hydropower fight has led to people realizing. So now the people, they realize all of a sudden that they, not only did they have, but they have a possibility of these very, very key rights. The right to information, the right to participation, the right to judicial recourse when that participation isn't working so well, and the right to having your future based upon rational decisions, rational environmental planning decisions. I mean, something else, I don't really want to take the time, but if anybody wants to look at it later, this is yesterday before getting on the airplane. This is a diagram of what happened to the people in Valbona. 50 people who were willing to sign as plaintiffs on 8 different legal actions so far, which they know will make them targets for this harassment, most of which is happening by the police and government, which is like, but they did. But everything red, everything red is where you're going along with the legal system, and then it gets blocked somehow by the non-functionality of the justice system. So I don't want to take it. But the last thing that I really wanted to say is, like, despite how upset we all are, despite how much so many of us burst into tears, I do think we're winning. I do. When we started this, nobody in Albania knew what a national park was. I mean, that's great that you have in the video that thing where we were like, it's spray painted on rocks. We don't know what it means. And that's literally how we started. We went to Tirana, we knocked on doors. And we said, excuse me, we live in a national park. What does that mean? Really crazy. It was crazy. But now you see, the people are saying it's a national park, it's ours, it belongs to us, it must be protected. And I'm about to stop. But also that it was just announced that the new Albanian Minister of Energy is going to start reviewing these hydropowers. I mean, this was unthinkable 3 years ago. You couldn't fight this. But although we are winning, I believe we are going to win in the end. Dam removal will repair our rivers even. We are going to win in the end, but at the moment we're not winning fast enough. So I think we would like to ask you in the EU, please, support us. Ask your EU delegations in our countries, even when we're not EU countries, ask them to help ensure public participation, because these people will fix this. The people will fix it if their voice is only heard. So that's what I would like to say.
No, my colleague wants to make a statement.
No, just I have to leave. I have an own event going on next door. I changed the schedule, so they're waiting for me there, so I can be here with you. I just want to thank you again for all your engagement, for civil society, and for saving the nature. Thanks for all of you being here. Thank you. Hvala lepa in faleminderit.
Okay, Mr. Rama, you have the floor.
Greetings. I would like to invite you for the invitation. My name is Artan Rama. I'm a freelance journalist. I deal with environmental issues. And before, I spoke with some of our journalists, and they confirmed that the number of participants in the hall is very high. And I think this is a very good thing that I'm happy about, because it is very hard to find such an interest in Tirana. I thank you, the organizers, for organizing this event. And because in relation to the protection of the Balkan rivers, but especially for putting the stress on Albania, for as long as Albania is the worst case when it comes to the sustainable development and concrete the hydropower stations. The number of the hydropower stations in Albania has exceeded 650. There are 650 hydropower stations in such a small territory. They were allowed to be built in less than a decade. in Albania, it is claimed that they are assuring electric energy, but they don't know what they're losing, because there are no experts, pure experts in Albania. There are no pure studies to assess, to evaluate the biodiversity. Albania, just like the majority of the Balkan countries, has a very multifarious diversity. Since 2014, the European Parliament has issued continuous resolutions insisting on the protection and the continuous control of the hydropower plants in Albania. However, I think that such resolutions are not sufficient to protect the nature and biodiversity. At present, there is a political crisis in Albania. The opposition has left as a ban on the parliament and turned out to streets. The European Parliament has some commissioners, some members of the European Parliament have come to Albania to negotiate over the solution of this crisis. But I've never seen reporters and Europarliamentarians who have tried to address the real environmental crisis which is happening in Albania. I would very much ask them that under these circumstances, please see the opportunity how we can, in a diplomatic way, organize a meeting in Tirana in order to increase the awareness and the conscientiousness not only of Albania but also the European Parliament as how we can rescue the biodiversity in Albania, how we can ensure a sustainable development. I would very much ask you to as Catherine some time ago said, that the Albanian government has issued a decision to review the granting of some concession permits for the construction of the hydropower plants. I would say that it's better to judge the Albanian government from what they do and not from what they say. So I would conclude my speech saying that please do not treat the environmental issue separate from the political ones. And when you discuss the political crisis, it is better to think that there are environmental issues at the background of this crisis. Thank you very much.
Now I'll give the speech to Yorgos Chondros, who is the head of the Environment Department of Syriza, the Greek party who is in power in Athens. So please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I came here representing Syriza as a member of Syriza, a representative of the environment in Syriza. I decided to change what I was going to say, having heard the speeches here. I come from a very small village in the Pindu area, south of Albania. It's called Mesohora. That's a big village, really. There's about 1,000 inhabitants, and over the decades it has run the risk of disappearing because of a lake, an artificial lake that was built for hydro electricity. Now, I've been listening very carefully to what has been said here, and I understand that we have to really have a debate in the Balkans. Greece has not been present so far, even though it is a Balkan country, and it is a country which can show some experience in terms of managing the rivers and electricity issues. We have a river of 220 kilometers, and that has been discussed, the situation with this river here in the European Parliament in terms of its environmental aspects. And we've got 4 large plants and 2 are in the pipeline. It's a huge plan. I was a student quite young when this project took off. And I can say that even over time, this whole project is still ongoing, and it has destroyed 80% of the 220 kilometers. It's no longer a natural river, but this false body of water, and this has severely affected the local communities. When Greece became a member of the European Union, there was a lot of hope, a lot of positive thoughts about the developments that would bring. And so we have had some experience in all this. Indeed, when Greece did come into the European Union and it had harmonized conditions with the other countries in the EU, there was an improvement in environmental conditions. So take that on board. It was a good step forward. However, if the locals don't protest and don't take matters into their own hands, then there is no solution to these problems. This work was condemned in Greece by the Supreme Court. However, due to rather shady grey areas in the decision-making process, the situation continued, and this whole large project continued. There was then a decision by the Council of State in Greece, and the government decided to use these two artificial lakes which had been created, these dams, only for energy production. However, you will not be surprised to hear that the environment had already been damaged. And I can say that there has been, in any case, environmental damage. So I just wanted to tell you about our experience in protesting and being active against these situations. The dam in Mesohoro, for example, has been completed, but it hasn't yet been put into function. It's still not functioning because of the work of these associations in Greece. We had a film festival in Thessaloniki recently, and on that occasion a film was presented very similar to the one that we've seen here for Albania, and it was very forceful. It really created an impression, and I want to say, therefore, to come to my conclusion, that in order to save these environments in the Balkans, for example, obviously we in the Balkans have very rich biodiversity and wonderful environmental heritage. It's up to us. This is in our hands. We have to apply pressure to government forces, whatever they may be. I am a member at the moment of the governing party in Greece, so we have to apply pressure to the European institutions. Then we heard today that in the north and the centre of Europe, they are very sensitive to environmental issues for their own country, and they have to somehow satisfy the requests of their own environmental organizations. And we heard about Austria and the movements there, resisting a dam which would have been built very near to Vienna. The situation was saved, and the river was saved. So a movement was created in that country, but they are not supporting the poorer countries of the European South. Turkey, for example, where huge projects are being planned, and they are going to have very negative effects, generally speaking, in the Balkans area. So if we can save the rivers of the Balkans, this also depends on us, on the struggle that we are prepared to wage and the pressure that we should bring on the European institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kuloglu will come back soon. I see one intervention wants to be made by Mr. Georgi Bujuku from Confindustria from Albania. And then, of course, the floor is open for some short comments. Please, Mr. Bujuku.
Thank you very much. I would like, first of all, to introduce myself. My name is Georgi Bujuku, and I come here like the head of Albania Confederation of Industry. It's an umbrella organization, voluntary organization, non-governmental, and the members of my institutions are the businesses from all kinds of economy and industry. In this point, I would like to continue in my own language because I know that we are in live stream and there are a big interest in my country for this very, very important event that it's continue now.
As I mentioned earlier, our members come from various categories of business community in Albania, and when it is a question of construction and in the sector of electricity, I must be sincere to say that I've had contradictions within the members of the institution I lead. There are categories of businesses, of people who would like to invest, and also there are other categories of business communities that were against investments in the electric power and sector. We are facing a dilemma, and this is exactly the reason that we have taken this issue seriously in order to find an optimal way out. That is to reach a sustainable economic development, both in the energy sector, but at the same time to harmonize it by preserving the environmental standards, because only in this way we can be sustainable, we can issue long-term solutions, and it will be only the public interest that will profit from this. We should not forget that Albania has an acute need in developing of the energy sector and the production of the energy sector. For over 40 years, no investment in the energy sector was made in Albania. And of course, the consequences were dramatic for the economy, the industry, the well-being of the citizens. And these consequences would fall into poverty, and of course it would result in poverty, terrorism, and all the other bad things. The idea is that it is not sufficient to criticize, but at the same time we also should offer a solution. And it is precisely this reason that we are in the phase of preparing a draft platform, which I took myself of the availability here, of being at this conference, and I've put it aside for all the participants to read. This platform is based on three main pillars. First, the first pillar on which this draft platform is based on is to reach a sustainable and long-term development. That is to harmonize the industrial development with the protection of environmental standards. This is the point that we think it can reach to the public interest. The second pillar is finding realistic solutions, legal and sustainable solutions in as short time as possible and with effective lower costs for the citizens, support for the investors, and also offer a good climate of business in Albania, making business in the country. The third pillar on which we are supporting in order to build this platform is to avoid by all means the confrontations and attacks on private investors and their confrontation with the community. We think that their confrontation with the community should be actually with the state institutions in order first to improve legislation and second to enforce this legislation in the best way possible. There are 6 measures that we have proposed, and actually these are urgent measures. The first is to immediately stop construction on the Vjosa River. The problem is that the environmental studies have been really shallow, and if we judge on a long term, the damage coming from the construction on the Vjosa River would practically be to hundreds and thousands and millions of euros. We have held a conference in the town of Permet in Albania in cooperation with the local authorities of Albania and Greece, because they also have share the same interests with us, and they were categorically against the construction without making all the calculations. The second is to immediately stop the policy of financial subsidies. I have the pleasure of hearing this issue from my predecessors. It is this policy that encourages investors to construct these hydropower plants. Of course, the third is the construction of a public database in which all the controls on the implementation of the contracts should be public and transparent, and not only with the state agencies but also from all the reporting from the groups of citizens and NGOs. Of course, the fourth is to draft a concept which means that in the case of the Vjosa River, for example, we build a dam, then Vjosa is not a wild river and it loses only from the wild river trademark. We lose millions of euros if we're going to follow this as industrial tourism. Of course, to prohibit by law the unwanted projects. There are unwanted projects that come from the private business. The state should organize the project and commercialize them if needed based on the certain parameters, and of course to place everything under a very strict monitoring by all the state and public institutions, the civil society, for all the contracts that are being implemented or in the process of being implemented. If there are cases when these are not implemented, then let's follow a legal solution of these contracts with the initiative of the state. For example, the case of the Valbona River, I think it is a case that we can have a complete environmental rehabilitation and see it as a pilot project. The seventh measure is to start as soon as possible constructions on the urban plans. The illegal constructions, the deforestation, the cutting of forests and logs, the use of the inert rivers, the mines, if we get everything together, these are harmful as much as harmful as the construction of the hydropower stations. So we cannot continue without urban plans. I would like to stop here because we have a limited time in our disposal. I think this is a good opportunity so that we both have the support of the European Parliament as a political group in order that concrete measures be translated into laws and increase of institutional and human capacities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bujogu. Before I give the floor back to the panelists for 1 minute each, please, because now we have really very limited time. Just for anybody from the audience that want to make a very short intervention, otherwise we can go ahead with our guests and panelists, and I will invite Mrs. Visa and or Teresa Sila. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So thank you first for all your comments and suggestions and also experiences shared. Some few comments there. I could say I would like to address so many things, but the time is limited, so I would like to really talk with some of you later on if there's a chance. One thing, referring to the gentleman from Syriza, which we can fully underline again, is the general popping up of hydropower projects and like tackling them one or fighting them one, and then the plants never really disappear. This is our experience as well, and that's why we came up with this master plan. That it needs a regional, a general approach, a spatial plan, which really highlights and legally binds for hydropower developments, so that it exactly avoids the situation that it comes up and up and up again for the same river stretches, which have been identified of high ecological values. Comment to this. I'm really happy to see the initiative of the Albanian Confindustria approach. It sounds really interesting, and I mean we have already been in touch, and you supported our in the campaign in Albania as well. So there are also plenty of things I would like to continue exchanging on. Still, what I would also like to emphasize, and it's exactly the point also again addressed to the European Commission and the European Parliament, especially in Albania. I don't want to focus only on Albania, but there really some projects are really pressing currently, and one of them you can see here is the Vjosa, where we are very much focused on today, and this site that you're seeing here will be dammed soon if there won't happen anything. Last summer the contract has been signed, the concession contract, and the investor is just going on with the so-called EIA. Side comment here, there is in the meantime quite some biodiversity data which has been gathered and collected by scientists who are collaborating with us. We have a compilation of this. I have some documents with me as well. I'm glad to share them with you. However, this research will also continue. So we are continuing to prove the values of the region and to show how proper EIA could be done in the region and which data will be needed, and we will come up with new and updated analysis for the region. Question, final point to this, which I would also really like to be aware, the Commission and the Parliament. What will we do if this continues, or what can you do actually to help us? We are putting all our energy to prevent and to preserve these river systems, for example, Vjosa. What can we do if they just continue? Is there any, or what can you actually do to support our fight here? So this would be something I would be glad to discuss further later.
Thank you very much. Igor?
Yeah, I'll be very brief because I think we need time for the others to speak. I just want to echo what Catherine said. Give these people a voice. They're silenced, they're threatened. If you give them a voice, they will sort it out. That's the only thing which is needed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bizarre?
Yeah, I applaud the intervention of Mr. Bujuku because I think also the business community shouldn't be the enemy, it should be a partner. I think it's the lack of rule of law and proper rules and proper competition that has brought this kind of environment of greed and corruption in terms of not only power plant projects but also other forms of development. If we have, let's say, an environment, a business environment which actually respects the rule of law, you have a business environment where actually the environmental impact assessments are clear, are done properly, the rules about the impact in the environment are clear, we'll see more sustainable businesses appearing, we'll see businesses who actually will think more long-term and only types of businesses who actually want to speculate for a quick buck and destroy the environment in the process and also the livelihood of local communities. So I think it's good businesses can be great partners in people in their fight for sustainable development. Thank you.
It's great that we hear the voice of the local communities, NGOs, journalists. Now I think it's the time to watch 10 minutes a video by Artan Rama that spoke before. I hope you will enjoy it because it's artistically and also investigative, very interesting. And then we will hear the second panel. We'll follow the second panel with the representatives of the Commission and the mission of Albania here. Looking forward to listen. Thank you.
When you see things from high up above, everything appears different. These apartment buildings, even though made of concrete, look harmless and insignificant, but they still remain dull and depressing. Despite the hectic activity of the people down there, the landscape appears bleak and frozen. For this reason, getting out of town can give one a feeling of freedom and relief. It is a brand new day. We're driving towards the highlands on the nation's highway. We turn on the camera when the landscape of the terrain around us turns picturesque and unusual. On the road, the air is crisp and cool. We leave Kukus behind and drive through the gorge of Vanas. This area is part of the National Park Korab-Koridnik. A branch of the river Drini, Luma, snakes its way through the gorge. These facilities built in the riverbed serve as a center of operations for the hydropower plant of Bede. The concrete diverts the water in channels. The old riverbed looks like it is basking in the sun. All around us, the erosion is clearly visible. There are actually two hydropower plants built next to each other, Pobrig and Bede. Channels, pipes, penstocks, as well as an artificial reservoir, are now an integral part of the new landscape. All that has chased away forever from their natural habitat most of the living things that once called this place home. The epidemics has spread downstream. Here they collect the water for one of two hydropower plants built on this segment of River Luma. We are in the region of Topoyan, and the hydropower plant is called Topoyan 1. This is the river before it meets the dam. Here it flows freely and is pristine. Further downstream, it is blocked and forced through channels and pipes underground, leaving only a dry riverbed on the surface. Autumn rainfalls have not yet begun, and as a result, there is little water. Suddenly, we find in front of us something that resembles a concrete cage. It stretches for dozens of meters, maybe even hundreds. I am not exaggerating when I consider it a concrete coffin, which will forever entomb the already defunct riverbed. We go further up the mountain and fly the drone. This is the Cherem hydropower station built on the Cherem Creek. A different method was employed in building this power plant. It requires the laying of a 3-meter-wide pipeline stretching all the way from Cherem village to a place down the valley alongside the eastern slopes of Kolata. It is still unclear how these two hydropower plants will be connected to each other, how long this pipeline is going to be, and how many cubic meters will flow through it.
Ta po I detyrojnë të largohen nga trojet e tyre shekullore. Ku do të shkojnë? Të emigrojnë, kjo është rruga. Të pabindurit ikin jashtë, sklevrit të rrinë brenda, ata duan para, nuk intereson jeta e njerëzve. Tu kemi bëjmë me shtypjen dhe shkeljen e dinjitetit njerëzor. As në kohë lufte uji nuk mund pritet, po këta po ua marrin ujin, këta po ua marrin jetën.
Thank you very much, Artan. When we saw we were seeing the video, I received messages that people want to come and visit Albania for how beautiful it is. So thank you very much, all the panelists. I invite Mr. Lavina and Mr. Mara to join us. And we have to speed up a little bit now because we have interpretation until 6:30 sharp. Thank you. Thank you very much. One of the things we have learned in European Parliament is to be multitasking. So we can do many things. I welcome Mr. Jesus Lavina, Head of Sector from DG NEAR. I really respect the work from the European Commission. I used to work in DG Enlargement and on Albania, actually, for some years. So I really respect the job of the Commission and how much has contributed. And now I would like to invite Mr. Lavina to tell us the other side of the story. But I am optimistic that everybody works for the best for the whole Balkan countries and Albania that we focus later. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have to confess that I was very happy to be invited to this session, but now I'm a bit afraid after the previous panel. But no, seriously, I'm really honored to be here this afternoon. I think it's a super interesting, super relevant subject that we are discussing here today. And I'm glad to be here on behalf of my director that was not available, so I'm happy to represent her. I had a bit of a speech, but I think I will rather react or try to react to some of the comments. I cannot address everything. I think there is a lot of things we have seen in the films, we have listened in the declarations or in the different presentations that we had before. And I wanted to focus on the title of this intervention, Common Efforts for Saving the Balkan Rivers. But if you allow me, I want to take a step back first of all, because there are a lot of things that have been mentioned this afternoon, but for me there are few things that would also help in the discussion. If we go a bit back and we take a bigger picture of the situation, we have been talking a lot about water and habitats, ecosystems, living conditions, livelihoods, sustainability of the local communities. But I want to talk a bit also broader picture or on development in the Western Balkans, and in particular related to energy in the Balkans. I haven't, well, there were a few references at the beginning or in some of the interventions about the energy needs and the energy demand, that it may be arguable, that we may have different views, but the situation is that the demand of energy in the Balkans will be associated to the economic growth, okay? And probably the availability or the energy that's available right now will not be enough for the next future. If you look at the Balkans, almost half of the energy is coming from hydropower, or in the case of the electricity. But the other half is coming from thermal power plants. I haven't heard anything about the problems that the region, I'm not talking only about Albania, which probably is the least affected, but the other countries in the region, air pollution, it's a major problem. And the transition or decarbonization, as we like to call it now, it's going to be or has to be one of the priorities in the region. Air quality, I mean, we had an opportunity in the last weeks to have a new report that was prepared by Health and Environment Alliance, another NGO that has been working in the region. Only two figures I'm going to share with you. 16 thermal power plants in the Balkans pollute more than 250 in the European Union. Out of the 10 more polluting power plants, 8 of them are located in the Balkans. So only these things, and of course, you know, the national parks that we saw in the films have nothing to do with that, are probably not that affected, but people, citizens living in the capitals or in the main cities, not only in the region, but also in some bordering or neighboring countries in the EU, are also suffering that. And there is a lot of, costing and quantification in working days, in euros, even in lives or sickness. So I would recommend you to go to and to try to look at this report. There's been a lot of, well, a few references to climate change and the fact that the Western Balkans are one of the regions more affected already or that will be affected by climate change impact in Europe. And again, water scarcity or excess of water in different seasons may be, or it's already an issue. What we are trying to do from the European Commission or from the European Union side, I think it was the colleague from Bosnia and Herzegovina who rightly pointed out the strategy, the Western Balkan strategy that the Commission issued last year. And as you know, last year we had also this summit, European Union Western Balkans, the first one in 15 years, what we consider to be clearly a milestone because it put the Balkans in the focus of the EU interest and vice versa. So I think it was, despite the fact that a lot of things can do better, but I think there are a lot of good things in that. And this strategy, as you rightly point out, doesn't have environmental issues in the core, or if I would even say in none of the flagship initiatives. But there are a number of places in the strategy, if you read it carefully, where we are talking about sustainable development, where we are talking about energy transition, where we are talking about environmental acquis, well, EU acquis in general, but in particular environmental standards. So I think we have hooks in the strategy to try to apply some of the things that are, or the ideas that have been mentioned this afternoon. What do we do? It's been mentioned, the enlargement policy and the mechanisms that we have already with the Balkan countries, being it candidates or pre-candidates. There are the association agreements, where we discuss chapter by chapter all the EU acquis with each of the partner countries. Today, just to give an example, in Tirana, the subcommittee dealing with environment, energy, transport and regional developments is taking place as we speak. So, and that your colleagues in your capital, with my colleagues from the different line DGs in the Commission and DG NEAR, go through all the different pieces of the EU acquis and see how Albania, in this particular case, is progressing in the implementation. There are mechanisms. Energy communities are a very powerful instrument, as has been said. If we give them, if we help them, the Commission is of course supporting, and the European Union is a member of or a party of the treaty, and we are represented by DG Energy. And so I'm also involved in the discussion. I can tell you that the energy community is doing a lot also to make sure that all these concerns that you are putting on the table today are properly taken into account by the parties, so Western Balkans, but also some of the Eastern partners. What do? We do policy dialogue. A part of the subcommittees, we have policy dialogue, be it sectoral or be it global, with each and every partner countries in the Balkans. When we talk about the EU acquis, it's not only about environmental issues, it's not the habitats or the birds directive or the environmental impact. We are talking about procurement, we are talking about rule of law, we are talking about human rights. We try to go through all the 30-something chapters that we have. So that's quite a comprehensive approach, the way the EU and each of the Balkans interact. We support financially, as you know, the IPA, the Instrument for Pre-Accession, is quite, again, a substantial amount of money from the EU taxpayers that goes for the countries, for the development of the countries, and for them to be closer to the EU. We are always talking about this EU path. We are always talking about this reinforced partnership and relationship between the EU and the Western Balkans. The diversity of programs and modalities that we use in each country is huge. It could go from, global public administration reform, so very central, to very small grants for NGOs. And this morning I had the opportunity to discuss with some of you. And then you have regional programs for energy efficiency. We have, of course, support to the IFI, so we We have blending activities where our grants are blended with the loans from the IFIs, with the controversy that Igor has mentioned. So it's true that there is money coming from the EU at the beginning of the process. We have discussion with the IFIs, so all the concerns that you are putting on the table, again, I can guarantee that we have these discussions with the IFIs. Another example, 10 days ago, or a bit more than that, we had, well, maybe I just refer to the strategy because Igor asked. I didn't want to, but just let me mention it. 3 years ago, in one meeting with the region, the countries asked, and it was, I think, in the presence of our Commissioner, Commissioner Hahn, asked to have a kind of an overview of the hydropower development in the Balkans. And then Commissioner said, okay, let's go for a study, let's go for a regional strategy. You know, at the end, I think it's the methodology, data, everything can be challenged, but the result, what I would say is, at the end of 3 years, we have a result that could be, it's in the website, so you can go and check. It could be questionable, but it's quite a thorough analysis of a number of hydropower plants that were in the pipeline or already built. The study only covers the large ones, so above 10 megawatts. So no all the 2,500 small hydropowers. But still, what I think is useful for the small ones is the process. In the process, there has been a consultation with IFIs, with countries, with locals, well, civil society, I would say. And it's been quite broad. Again, probably not perfect, but I think long and quite broad. The final result, what initially we wanted to have, which was actually this strategy with a number of projects to be funded, we didn't manage to get that result. But then we came back with the evolution, if you want, went also with what is happening in the European Union, and it's happening in the Balkans. We stopped talking about hydropower as an isolated resource or means or renewable source of energy, and we are talking now about clean energy transition. We are talking about energy efficiency, we are talking about solar, we are talking about wind, we are talking about biomass whenever it's possible. So if you want, the approach is now different. The result of the study is there, but I think the beauty, or what I like the most, is that now the engagement with the countries is broader than hydropower. And we, attached to the list of projects that has been very controversial, we had what we call the Principles for Sustainable Hydropower Development, which is basically all the things you have been mentioned. Sorry, I've lost my paper now. Here we are talking about the water availability, the impact of climate change. We are talking about transboundary issues. We are talking about local communities engagement. We are talking about proper environmental and social impact assessment. We are talking about planning. We are talking about the Water Framework Directive, which looks at the river basin and river basin management plans, not 2,500 small hydropowers one by one. No, let's go for rivers. Let's go for a more holistic approach. There is another very interesting document in the energy community, if you can look at it, which is their opinion on the small hydropower. And again, they put in the center the consultation. Take into account, so I think the word they use is participative dialogue. Make sure that the local communities are listened, and the private sector. I'm also very happy to listen today to the private sector. I mean, what's going to happen in your countries and in your region in the next years? And I like very much these common efforts. I mean, it's not only the European Commission. I assume my role, and I'm happy to put my part in the solution. But I like very much when the private sector comes here with concrete solutions. The problems are there, and we have to recognize this. I don't want to hide anything, but let's go for solutions. Let's give the power to the local communities to make their voice listen. And I'm very how to say, impressed by the images and the film and the testimonies. I mean, it's dramatic what it's happening, and I would encourage you to continue doing so, because I think it's your role. I'm not going to do that in my office here in Brussels, but I'm happy to convey that message to my hierarchy or to my counterparts, be it Brussels or be it in the capitals of the countries. So just maybe to stop here, I think the problem is beyond hydropower. So in the end, it's the sovereign decision of the countries. It has to be based on data that in most of the cases is not there. I mean, the Eco Master Plan has been presented today, but not all the data had been available, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. There is lack of information about business ongoing or business opportunity. There are lack of information of potential on some renewable. Well, there is not. There is a lot of studies ongoing. Let's put everything on the table and let's allow the decision makers to take the decisions properly based with information, and then everybody has to be listened. But what I think is, again, a common effort, different responsibilities and different roles, European Parliament and of course the governments of the countries. But just to finish, thank you very much. It's been really super informative and interesting session for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lavina. I invite Mr. Mara to respond, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the invitation and for rendering this very interesting session, as all the previous speakers addressed in their insights, especially even from the European Parliament in a very tough period of time, that you have quite a lot of heavy agenda, you find time and address special focus with the region, in the case with the rivers. And exactly in my intention, in my intervention, because I am not a specialist from the field, I am a diplomat, but nevertheless we do very much attention related to these issues, is exactly to address what is the political will on all appropriate bodies and national governments, and what are the recent steps that are undertaken in the course of dealing with such kind of problems. The Western Balkan countries are abundant with water resources. In Europe, they represent among some of most water-rich with respect of amount of water availability per person. About 10,600 cubic meters per capita, which is twice the European average. And according to as per database, about 90% of West Balkan presently installed hydropower capacity was constructed before 1990. The years, and some even before 1955. So, with such infrastructures that are aging and at risk after years of underinvestment, there is a need for kind of studies and actions what exactly to do with that. And rehabilitating existing is thus crucial to safeguard the present contribution that hydropower makes to the region's mixed energy. Consider the limited capacity that can be achieved by upgrading structures during rehabilitation, and in order to meet growing energy demands, new sources needed to be developed in addition across the region. And actually, there is a scientific consensus that the Western Balkan needs both new sources of energy production and a regional strategy for sustainable hydropower, always with a kind of, as Mr. Lavina mentioned, to be friendly versus environment. In terms of prospective electricity balances, with the emphasis on hydropower generation until for a period of time 2020, 2030, and even beyond 2050, one aspect is apparently clear, that the further hydropower potential development possibility under the current and foreseen circumstances throughout the region deserves through analysis addressing the challenging questions, among others, that include hydropower potential, its classification and practical meaning at the level of its utilizations to date, the dynamics of HPP construction in the past 6 decades, the past and present role of these assets, the prospects for a coordinated and combined approach between rehabilitation of existing HPP as a first priority and additional need for sustainable greenfield HPP project so as to meet with renewable energy sources policy objectives. The resulting scopes for hydropower penetration in electricity supply balance up to 2010 and beyond. And the last one, which is the future role of hydropower generation throughout all the countries of the region. In analyzing the options for sustainable hydropower development in the region for the years ahead, a balanced approach is required, considering both the recognized country-specific and regional constraints related to spatial planning, the environment and climate change, social aspects, implementation of the technical, economics and financial aspects of new eventual HPPs. Meantime, the European Commission Energy Roadmap 2050 sets out 4 main routes to a more sustainable, competitive and secure energy system by 2050. That are energy efficiency, renewable energy, nuclear energy and carbon capture. In this context, hydropower generations in the West Balkan region seems to be a promising opportunity due to the considerable untapped hydropower potential in the region. However, as per EU Energy Strategy 2050, investment for a period of several decades have to be made soon, and policies that promote stable business climate which encourage low carbon investments must begin to be made today even. Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Republic of North Macedonia, Kosovo, Montenegro and Serbia are all contracted parties to the Energy Community Treaty. As such, they have obligation to comply with all EU acquis process, which is a process applicable to EU member states as well to candidate and potential candidate countries. However, for contracted parties, the requirements are mild in scope with reduced defined charges and extended to deadlines. A key part of common energy policy of both EU and West Balkan countries are renewable energy resources charges and decarbonisation, like reducing greenhouse gas, etc. All countries of the regions energy policy are strongly committed to the process of implementing EU acquis related to energy sector, include market development within the framework of energy community. The main strategic planning documents that each country of the region is going to adopt in order to meet with 2023 targets are related with the implementation of Directive 2009/28/EC on the promotion of use of energy from renewable sources, RES Directive, and Directive 2012/20/EU of European Parliament on energy efficiency. Based on RES Directive, and all contracted parties obliged to prepare and to submit their national renewable action plans. And with regard to Albania, that it was just in the first panel as a case of study, the energy sector is one of strategic sectors and priority of Albanian government given the diversity of energy resources, all that, water, wind, solar, biomass, oil, gas, etc., that our country possesses as opportunities, which so far are not fully exploited. Energy has the potential of being a sustainable source of growth for country over the short to medium and long term. The National Energy Strategy 2018-2030 was adopted by decision of Council of Ministers on 31st July 2018. And this strategy is foreseen to be revised even each 3 years. Furthermore, on implementation of EU regulation number 347/2013 of European Parliament and the Council decision on guidelines for trans-European energy infrastructure, by Council of Ministers was adopted a decision on 14 November 2018 on the approval of practices for the promotion of joint regional investment in the energy sector infrastructure. Sure, only just for Albania. Prepared assistance, okay. Yeah. Albania also have adopted even the appropriate body that start to prepare national energy climate plan as is foreseen in that strategy and from the obligation by contracting party. Mostly of the let's say focus is in 4 directions: energy security, diversification of energy sources, solidarity and trust between all the local community, full integration in regional and subsequent European market, energy efficiency contributing modernization demand, decarbonization of economy and research innovation. Also, among countries in the region, under the EU connectivity agenda are organised quite a lot of activities, and all countries of the regions have worked together for taking, with the main focus, regional connectivity projects and measures to be taken. In framework of the Berlin process, all Western countries, Western Balkan countries are recommended to develop further the energy resources, but that is friendly with the environment. And as from January of this year, Albania is keeping the chairmanship of Energy Charter of Conference, and the priorities are to improve governance for energy efficiency and to address mutual measures and policies in regard with diversification of energy sources and decarbonization. And finally, HPP is supposed to play a significant role in the region for power system, but the new projects should be also used as a test cases for applied implementation and procedure based on transposed EU acquis on environment, water framework directive, floods, habitat, birds, DEA, EAI objectives, etc., and in the same time, in line with international agreements and conventions of Paris, Aarhus, Bern, Espoo, etc. Last but not least, climate change considerations also remain an important issue, that elements for the future planning of this sector. Thank you. Sorry for being a bit brief.
Thank you, Mr. Mora. Just to say that many apologies from Mr. Javkovcic from ALDE, that some changes in his schedule obliged him to go back to Croatia, so he was not here with us today. But as you can see, many MEPs from different political groups have expressed their particular interest, which is something unique in the Parliament, and we are very happy to see that from Greens, our group, GUE of course, ALDE, but now we can listen to the video interventions by Knut Fleckenstein from Social Democrats, which is a rapporteur of the European Parliament report on Albania, and from Edward Kukan from EPP, who is chairing the EU-Serbia Parliamentary Committee, but also is a member of EU-Albania Parliamentary Committee. So please, thank you very much.
Dear colleagues, unfortunately, since I cannot attend today's event, I would like to address you on this important topic with this short message. Being a permanent rapporteur for Albania, the developments in this country are of great interest to me, of course. In our last report in October, we have already expressed our concern about certain economic projects that have caused severe environmental damage. These include, for example, big holiday resorts and hydropower plants along the Vjosa and Valbona rivers. Of particular concern are the developments such as the pollution of the river Vjosa in Albania. This river is described as the last wild river in Europe and is affected by an enormous amount of oil pollution caused by the waste from the state-owned oil company Alpetrol. This pollution threatens the flora and fauna of the river as well as freshwater sources. The river is home to many species of animals and plants that are extinct in other European rivers. Examples like this show the relevance of the subject of today's event and the importance of political actions to the conservation of rivers in the Balkan generally. In Albania, it's necessary to rethink the energy strategy and to reduce the dependence on hydropower in electricity production, while at the same time more investment in renewable energy is needed. In this regard, international institutions such as the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development and the European Investment Bank also have to be made accountable for their support for hydropower projects with a lack of environmental impact assessment. Finally, it's crucial to take the opinion of the population into account and to pursue regional cooperation. For this reason, we welcome the efforts which already have been taken to strengthen regional cooperation, in particular in the field of environmental protection, such as the Trilateral Adriatic Initiative. My best wishes to all of you participating there. I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you.
Can we listen now, Mr. Kukan? Thank you.
Dear colleagues, I'm sure that many of you have seen or experienced the natural beauty of the Western Balkans region. The unique biodiversity you can find in this part of Europe needs of our attention and protection. We need to preserve it for future generations. What we are witnessing in the last decades is that ecologically sensitive areas are prone to irreversible damage. One of them are the rivers in the Western Balkans, which has been for a long time the natural treasures of the region. It is us, here in the European Parliament, who need to care more about the unique natural environment in the Western Balkans. We share the responsibility for environment protection beyond our borders and for the future of the region. We also need to admit that many our EU-supported projects contributed to the recent undesirable situation. Therefore, it is also our responsibility to act. I have been following the situation around the Vjosa and Valbona rivers in Albania for a long time. Development of hydropower plants along these rivers has drastically altered the precious water resources. Vjosa River is one of the last wild rivers in Europe. As such, it deserves our protection. Valbona River is a part of the Valbona Valley National Park, one of the most beautiful national parks in the region. Albania and the other countries of the Western Balkans need investments in the renewable energy sector. However, this cannot happen to the expense of its precious water resources. The countries need to lower its exclusive orientation towards hydropower energy when it comes to the renewable diversity. This will be an important investment in the future of Albania's beautiful biodiversity. I would like to thank you all for paying attention to the issues of the river protection in the Western Balkans. I sincerely hope it will contribute to preservation of the natural beauty of the region. I wish you a very fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much. When we started this initiative, colleagues asked me now, okay, we have to focus on environment. But from the discussion today and the thoughts we had at the beginning, it's obvious that it's not only environment. It's energy, it's sustainable development, it's dialogue with civil society and the local communities. And we are very happy that there is an interest from inter-party interest here in the European Parliament, is an interest from local communities and civil society, and we have the response, valuable response from the Commission and the government of the region. Just to say that the rivers in the past were borders. Today the rivers connect us, and they call us to find common solutions. I'm very glad that we hear concrete proposals today from the local communities and from private sector and from the European Commission. And for us is a valuable capital to continue this discussion and to find common solutions for the local communities and for sustainable development of the countries. I invite you, if you have any final comment, we're happy. We have more 3-4 minutes. We are happy to have it. I will give the floor first to a person that has not spoken before. So okay. Please, no more than 1 minute. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Arben, and I work as a tourist guide in Albania, especially with culture and nature. So please, I think you have the key to save the Balkans, to save the peace in the Balkans, because what connects people in the Balkans is nature and tourism. So tourism is the future for the younger generation, which is living Albania, especially last 2 years, but also this problem you find in Serbia, in Bosnia, in Northern Macedonia, in Montenegro, and Kosovo too. So I think you should react strongly to try and save this industry, which made me leave England 8 years ago and return to Albania, because I used to live as an illegal immigrant all over Europe, so I don't want to live anymore like that. So please do something.
Thank you very much. Mr. Podic?
Well, all stories that we heard today are stories about dysfunctional democracies, about high levels of corruption, about judicial system that is not working. If these countries are really serious about joining the EU, and if the EU is really serious about adopting them, then these things must be fixed. They are not second-rate issues. They are really priorities. And again, on the environment, yes, our power plants are terrible polluters. We have some of the worst polluters in the world. The amount of money that is required to fix emissions from Bosnian plants is around 400 million euros. We don't have that money. One source of money would be to tax fuel. We could tax fuel in order to fix emissions. But what happened? There was a strong pressure from the EU to redirect that money so that we can build highways, so that we can keep European banks happy. the chief of EU delegation was chasing MPs around the villages to bring them to vote to get this taxation law in place. From IPA, we are getting 20 million euros a year. Just to fix air pollution in the capital, we need 10 times more money. We don't have money to fix our environmental problems, and environment must be a priority. Thanks a lot.
Teresa, you want to say something? Thank you.
Thank you. Just closing remarks. So I think, of course, any hydropower plant is adding energy, but what I really want to emphasize once more, I think it needs a decision. We are talking about a European natural heritage which is at risk to be destroyed while we are negotiating. All the time, they are constructing, they are going on, and I think it's not about, I think we are all aware of the situation and that it needs to go towards renewable energies and that the region needs energy. But hydropower is destroying these last free-flowing rivers, while inside the European Union, countries spent millions and millions and millions of euro in order to restore the destroyed rivers already. So this is really, I think it needs a decision here. And in addition, at the same time, I appreciate, of course, the efforts done and ongoing, but I think we need to act now. So this is crucial. And this would be my question towards the European Commission and the Parliament. Do you have any tools to immediately interfere if there is a real urgency, as I mentioned previously? It is very probable that Vjosa will be destroyed, that the investors will continue during this year still. So this would be the question to which I would like to discuss further or get an answer, if there are possibilities, how you could further interfere. And then, for last remark, I would also like to invite members of the European Parliament to come to visit the Balkan rivers, to see what's there if you haven't seen them yet. So this is really something which we are also really are looking for, to show you the places, you saw the pictures, the films, they are touching, but it's still different if you go there and live this last free-flowing rivers of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really touchy to see people coming from the region with their own expenses, representatives of local communities, and it's not so easy. We know this. We are very happy that we took this decision to go ahead with this initiative, and we promise you that we will follow up. And we want you to be with us in these efforts, and I'm sure that both the government and the European Commission will be with us. Thank you. And we are okay with the interpreters also. We fully respect their timetable, and we finished just 4 minutes before the 10. Thank you very much for their work.
I know it's handy.